With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Tonight, it's a Fuji doubleheader with both the GR86 and GT4 fixed series headed to the historic Japanese track. With one of the longest straights in all of iRacing and a fast-flowing technical section, this track has a bit of everything and is sure to produce some fantastic racing. Hello everyone and welcome to the PRL Monday Night Series brought to you here live on RaceSpotTV. My name is DJ Clark, joined in the commentary booth by Andy McEwen, sorry Andy, with our director and producer Hugo Louise behind the scenes. And Andy, first up tonight is our GR86 series. Now, but how are these new cars going to handle this classic track?
Well, that's the great thing and the fascinating thing really about these GR86s. Every time we race them somewhere for the first time, it's a bit of a voyage into the unknown, but I've got high hopes for the racing tonight. Fuji is a place that I think will suit the GR86s. That long straight will allow the drivers to really utilise the very strong slipstream effect from these cars, whilst the infield section, whilst technically demanding, you can run wheel to wheel through almost all of it. So I'm anticipating some good racing tonight.
Yeah, I am as well. A very wide track around here, which should allow for, as you said, some great wheel-to-wheel action. As we take a look at our schedule, we reach the halfway point here tonight at Fuji. We stay on the Japanese side of things, headed to Tsukuba next time out, then to Oschersleben, Olten Park, and then we end the season with Road America and Rudskogen, which is going to be a fantastic run to the end. We also do have our championship standings here. First up is the Drivers' Championship, and Justin Atakonis leads the way by about 10 points, but it's still a very close battle between himself, Mariano Barrios, and Kevin Sandiego. Going to be watching them all night long here to see who will come out on top in what has been a fantastic fight since the drop of the green flag in Race 1. Patrick Farrell behind them a little ways back as we also go over to our team's championship with Dark Horse Esports leading the way by a pretty healthy margin there. Red Tip Factory Racing in second place, but they have YS Motorsports and Unlimited Slips starting to creep up on them. URF Motorsports sits in fifth place with Walking Pace Racing, then Crikey Esports, RSH Motorsports, Moonlight Speed, Lunatic Racing, and Precision Racing Esports rounding out your top 10. And that is going to bring us into the racing action. But before we get to that, we'd like to thank some of the sponsors who make tonight possible. First and foremost, the Virtual Competition Organization. Massive thank you to the VCO, without which none of the racing action here for the Precision Racing League would be possible. We'd also like to thank Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest, most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. We'd also like to thank Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts. From the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver, competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. Also thanks to RaceLab apps. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Also thanks to the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Also like to thank Mecha Sim Hardware. Mecha Sim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you are looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed. And finally, thanks to NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Well, Andy, with the business out of the way, we can get down to the business of qualifying. 4-lap solo qualifying session around here, so they're not going to be able to use the benefit of that slipstream. But I've got to think, with that draft being so important and powerful once the race comes to play, I don't think qualifying is going to be necessarily the end-all and be-all today. You want to be up probably about the top half of the field, but the draft is going to help you keep it very, very close.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as long as you can stay in touch with that lead group once we do go racing, then honestly, you can afford to be a little bit patient. The issue is if you qualify badly, you run the risk of losing the lead draft, and that is something that you always have to think about with these cars on a high-speed circuit like this. You've got to stay in touch with the lead group whenever possible, and also the further towards the front you are, in theory, the less likely you are to get caught up in some of those shenanigans that we sometimes see at the first corner. So qualifying well will be of some significance for the drivers, and obviously a limited number of laps in which to try and get themselves that ideal starting spot.
Yeah, and speaking of that potential calamity coming into turn 1 here, that I think is going to be the real flashpoint as we ride on board with Andrew Sharp. Daichi, a pretty much 180-degree right-hander, very, very heavy braking zone. Yes, this track is wide, but if you get a couple of cars that start bumping into one another, we could see some real problems there on the opening lap, or indeed, really any lap that we see. But Sharp right now going to be the one getting us going, and you can see just how heavy of a braking zone that is. The car pitching forward as he slams on the brake for that first corner.
Really late on the brakes, actually. I was convinced he was overshooting the corner, but the brakes on these GR86s do really work once you find the sweet spot with them. We spoke last week about how these cars can feel a little bit strange sometimes if you're not used to the car under braking, but those brakes clearly are working very well indeed, and Andrew Sharp so far on what looks like a really good lap. Of course, qualifying so far this season has been almost all about Justin Adakonis, hasn't he? Took 3 pole positions from the first 3 weeks, but we did start to see that tide turn a week ago at Summit Point with Kevin Sandiego stealing a pole position, so I wonder if we'll get a 3rd pole sitter here tonight.
Well, I can guarantee you one thing, whether it's going to be Adakonis, whether it's going to be San Diego, or whether it's going to be Mariano Barrios, the gap at the top of the field is going to be very, very close, because that is something that we have seen time in and time out, just how narrow of a gap that is up at the front of the field. Sharp here now works his way through the Dunlop corner there. We are running that. There is a version of the track that sort of straight lines that chicane, but not running it here today through a little bit of a Mickey Mouse section sort of overlaps back on itself here, the final sector of the track, and then leading their way around here onto the final straightaway through the Panasonic corner. So crucial to get that corner right, Andy, because you need to maximize speed down this super long straightaway.
Yeah, we were chatting before we went live about my thoughts and opinions of Fuji, and the bit of it that I don't like is that final sector, and I think it's because you've got to be so patient, and Patience never really was my speciality. You've got to be patient on the turning, patient on the throttle. These corners are long and they often tighten just before you come towards the exit, so you don't want to get on the throttle too early. You'll have to then get off the throttle because you're understeering wide, and that will kill your momentum onto that pit straight. So that looked pretty good from Andrew Sharp, and the time that he set supports that theory. So far the only driver into the 157s.
Yeah, he's sitting up there with a 157, and as soon as we say that, Jonathan Dam able to take away the pole position with the 157.897. As promised, very, very small gaps up and through the field. Indeed, a tenth of a second separating Jonathan Dam from third place, Mariano Barrios, and first through 12th is separated by a mere 1 second. So some very, very close running here for these drivers. We're still waiting for a time for a few of the big hitters here, including Justin Atakonis, Anthony Drang, another driver who has not yet set a time down on the board as he brings his way through the right-hander there at the end of the sort of back straightaway, as now he tries to be able to line up a good time to be able to get going. One thing that we're not probably going to be talking a whole lot about here today is off tracks. This is normally a track that it's relatively easy to keep it within the lines because of how wide it is around this circuit.
Absolutely. The trouble is with racing drivers, you give them a wide circuit and they always want to use a little bit more width than they're entitled to, and especially on a qualifying lap, it is easy sometimes just to overstep the mark. Certainly out of this final corner, as I said, pick up a bit of understeer there and you're likely to run wide over the curve. Anthony Dring avoiding doing that though. That was inch perfect. Yeah, in theory, they shouldn't be going anywhere near those white lines, but to extract the maximum from these cars in a single make, a one make category, you've got to be pushing to the absolute limit, and it's not unheard of for them to go slightly beyond that.
Yeah, certainly not, as Drang will cross over the line there, and I'm not seeing a time set down for him. I can tell you Andrew Sharp is going to go back up to the top of the charts, but he is immediately pipped away by Justin Atakonis, and now Mariano Barrios puts in a better time as these times just continue to tumble. Marlon McMullen, who was our pole sitter, I believe, in week number 4, now up to the top of the charts there, and it's very, very close. The top 3 now separated by 85 hundredths of a second. The one thing that is a little bit surprising here to me, still have a couple of minutes left to go in qualifying, but Kevin Sandiego finds himself all the way down in 8th place, about 0.8 of a second off of the best.
Yeah, he would have been hoping to continue that momentum from a week ago at Summit Point, where he did qualify in pole position, didn't convert it into a race win, but he did start from the front of the field. Marlon McMullen, though, fastest so far, and Mariano Barrios has not had a front row start so far this season. He maybe sat second in the points, but he's been doing that because he's been racing well, not always racing from the very front, from the very start of the race. So far, Mariano Barrios on for a good night.
Yeah, looking very, very good now, trying to see what he is able to do. We follow Jonathan Dam here around the circuit right now. Only about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, call it 2 minutes and 40 seconds left to go here in this qualifying session, and then we will grid up here for a 35-minute sprint race where they will have a presumptive fuel stop. It is not mandatory for these drivers, but it is recommended as fuel tanks are limited. I can tell you Justin Atakonis just proved me wrong and ran a little bit wide. He's going to take a reset back to pit lane and try to get back out on track. Andrew Sharp with a little bit of a blink coming down the main straightaway here. Let's see if he's able to put in a better time. Kevin Sandiego here, we talked about him, all the way down in 8th place. Sandiego getting ready to cross over the line. What is that number 88 going to be able to do here as he comes down to the line, putting a time down on the board? That's a little bit more like it. He's up to 2nd place. No, he's down to 3rd as Mariano Barrios is able to pip the time away from him.
And just when it looked as though Barrios was getting close to Marlon McMullen's time, McMullen puts in another personal best and goes into the 57.1. So really impressive pace so far from Marlon McMullen. We saw Koenig going through there. He's 12th fastest at what is essentially the end of the qualifying session for him. Kevin Sandiego, though, finding a little bit of pace, and it looks like he's really attacking on this next lap. Heads through turns 3 and 4. This long right-hander, the 100R, which is technically 2 corners. That is turn 5, where it tightens up, and then stay to the right-hand side of the road to turn it into the hairpin at turn 6. This is where Jonathan Dam had a slide, where we picked him up a few minutes ago. No such issues, though, for Kevin.
No, he's looking very good about that. And I wonder if that first lap may have been a little bit of a banker lap for Kevin, just trying to put in a time that he would feel comfortable with and now pushing like the Dickens. I can tell you that our provisional pole sitter, though, Marlon McMullen, is down in pit lane. Looks like he is going to be satisfied with his time of 1:57.197. The rest of your top five, though, still out on track, trying to see if they are going to be able to improve. We have a couple of other drivers that have called it a day. Patrick Farrell, Rob Campbell, Dakota Tabler, Richard Swindells, Kelly Greenhoe, Josh Kimball, and Malcolm Foster, all calling it a little bit early. As we now watch San Diego down through that final sector, as you talked about, you've got to be so patient through here. A lot of double apex corners, sort of reminiscent of the last sector of Coda, if you're familiar with that, or a lot of circuits that, frankly, Herman Tilke has designed a lot quite like that. It is really the way that last sector kind of runs.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're certainly technically demanding corners, not necessarily the most enjoyable to drive, although I'm sure if you get it right, then you start to enjoy it a little bit more. Kevin San Diego with a late improvement jumps onto the front row, but it's a first pole position of the season in only his second appearance for McMullen. That is impressive stuff.
Yes, it is. As we now go through your starting order, it is going to be Marlon McMullen on pole position with Kevin San Diego running in second. Mariano Barrios and Justin Ataconis round out the top four and indeed round out your championship three. Jonathan Dam will line up fifth, followed by Patrick Farrell in sixth. Andrew Sharp, your early provisional pole sitter, will have to settle for seventh place. Rob Campbell's going to line up in eighth, followed by Brett Karakoff with Gerard Farewell in 10th. Michael Chase will be the first of the Chases lining up in 11th, and then it's Kevin Bergquist in 12th. Andrew Moran will be in 13th with Kwok Nin in 14th. Then Dakota Tabler 15th and Michael Lordy in 16th. Richard Swindells for Dark Horse Esports lines up in 17th, followed by his teammate Kelly Greenhoe in 19th. It's going to be Brian Savaleski in 19th, followed by Pierre Robitaille with Austin Bartlett Chase and Ian Cabana in the row behind them. Buddy Chamberlain starts off 23rd, followed by Matthew Wegenar. Then it's going to be Josh Kimball and Aaron Law. Matthew Sullivan will be in 27th with Malcolm Foster to his outside. Then it's Matthew Zegelin and Matthew Miles rounding out your top 30. So that, and then Anthony Dring, will be in 31st position. Well, as we get racing here, it's going to be a short pace lap for these drivers, as you can see, starting in the middle of that Sector 3. But they're going to have a long time to be able to get themselves up to speed down the long start-finish straightaway. Hopefully going to be able to avoid any of that calamity down into Turn 1, but only a few ticks of the clock to go, and we will find out exactly how everything's going to play itself out.
Yeah, I think it could be a pretty lively start to the race, actually. We mentioned how wide this track is, and I put forward my theory that drivers will always try and use every inch of that track, and I'm sure that will definitely be the case heading into Turn 1. Reasonable track and ambient temperatures, 64 Fahrenheit, just fractionally higher, 66 the track temperature. Pretty nice temperatures. I think really they should be able to generate some heat nice and quickly without having to worry too much about tyre wear over the course of the race.
And as we watch these drivers working their way through the final couple of corners, I am noticing a fair amount of brake dragging here for them, standing on the brakes and lifting back off. I think that's very crucial, as it shows you just how much braking force is going to be applied going down into Turn 1, and you certainly don't want those tires, those brakes to be locking up on you as you come down into the corner. They work their way through nets right now and come down into Turn 16, known as the Panasonic Corner, which leads onto this main straightaway, as there it is. Marlon McMullen for Precision Racing Esports carrying the flag there for the team. He will lead the field away, and he's going to have a long time to wait here until they get up to speed. The rest of the field really having to hustle to get their way to catch up to the back of the field here, but it looks like they've been able to do it for the most part. Still a couple of stragglers there behind. As the pace car continues to lead this field down the long main straightaway. It's about ready to peel off here and give full control of the field over to Marlon McMullen, as there he goes. McMullen waits a little bit longer. The administration giving orders, and now there he goes, and there goes the green. We are racing in Fuji for the first time tonight. It looked like Kevin San Diego tried to move over there and block off Mariano Barrios, but Barrios was able to get a good enough start that none of that was going to come to anything. Now it's going to be Justin Ataconis trying to work his way on the outside. They're going to be 3 wide coming down into Turn 1. That's of no concern to Marlon McMullen. First 3 cars are through nice and clean. They're going to come into the corner and come out of it nice and easy with a good move from Barrios to be able to hold on to P2.
Dream start for Marlon McMullen, though. He cleared the rest of the pack going into the braking zone. He could pick his line into the first corner and already has stolen a small march on the rest of them. It will be interesting to see whether or not it's possible to break away here at Fuji. I suspect not, but he's certainly giving it his best effort so far. Clean start as well. Clean run through the first few corners. No major issues that I can see. In fact, very little in the way of paint being traded so far. Let's hope they keep that up.
No, not at all. I think the only issue that I really spotted there was coming down through the Coca-Cola corner. It looked like Andrew Sharp was going a little bit wide, but he was able to gather everything back up under him. We watch Sharp on your screen right now as he's getting a move done to him down to the inside. Jonathan Dam. Dam's going to muscle his way on by, and Rob Campbell, the multi-champion, the multi-time winner there in the GT4 series, also going to come through. As now they come down into the Dunlop corner. Couple of drivers a little bit off. I think that's Michael Lordy losing a couple of positions. Looks like Michael Chase has lost some as well. Ian Cabana, a loser from that as well. Now they come down here into nets, trying to see what it can do. I like the aggressiveness that we're seeing here from Sharp and Farewell, the two YS Motorsports teammates, as they try to work their way forward. Looked like Jonathan Dam ran a little bit wide coming out of turn 15, as now they try to be able to get themselves out onto the main straightaway, and here that draft comes into play.
Contact in the ground, and that's our first major issue. That's Brett Karikoff and another car going around as well with him. Kevin Burkis, that was, who has gone around on the exit of the final corner. Just a bit of a stack up there. Perhaps somebody had to get out of the throttle, and that just caused a bit of contact. Already, though, look, the tactics starting to come into play. Marlon McMullen and Mariano Barrios working together at the front of the field, whilst Kevin Sandiego drafts past Justin Anaconis for third.
Yeah, and there's almost 3-4 wide there in the back. You can see them almost 3 wide, 2 deep as they come in. That's going to be Michael Chase, Dakota Tabler, and Andrew Moran. And it looks like Chase is going to back out of it, allowing for Tabler to go through. Now Moran runs a little bit to the inside. That was going to be up ahead of them. Dakota Tabler running wide, but able to collect everything up underneath him. And here you are seeing the full benefit of this very wide racing circuit is now coming down into the corner. It's going to be side by side between Tabler and Chase. Chase forced out a little bit wide, but looking down to the inside here into 100R.
Yeah, long right-hander. If you can get to the inside for the second apex, you can make a move there, but not happening on this occasion. They remain single file now as they turn into the hairpin. There are lots of places on the infield where you can launch a bit of a surprise attack, but you've got to be very confident on the brakes, and no one in these early stages wanting to take too many risks. On board with Cooknin as he heads towards the Dunlop chicane, and he'll have a brilliant view through the VR headset of everything going on around him, which actually, for the time being, DJ, is not that much.
No, it's really not. He's a little bit removed from the battle up in front of him with Tabler, Chase, Lordy, and Greenhoe. That's Greenhoe directly up ahead of him. Cars getting a little bit squirrely there as they work their way over the curbing. That is one thing that can come back to bite here at a couple of points on this circuit. There are some rather large sausage curbs that can come to play. But look at this fight. This is absolutely tooth and nail. Everybody slicing and dicing and trying to find their way forward.
Just as I said that he wasn't getting involved in the battles, Cooknin suddenly finds himself well and truly a part of this scrap for what is essentially 10th place. Dakota Tabler is the car, the red, green and black car at the front of that queue, and it stretches all the way back really to Brian Sabelski in 16th position, and they will only get closer now as they head into the draft down the pit straight, and side by side they will go. That is Cooknin on the inside of Kelly Greenhoe, and about to make a move into turn 1. Michael Lordy doing the same to Michael Chase ahead, and 2 by 2 they run past the pits towards the braking zone at turn 1.
I'm wondering here if Lordy's going to try to go for a 2-for-1 down to the inside of Dakota Tabler as he jumps onto the binders. He's certainly going to look for it. Quacknin able to get the move done there on Kelly Greenhoe, but he gets it wrong. The rear end locking up a little bit as he comes out of the corner. That's going to allow for Kelly to be able to move back on by him, and Richard Swindell says, thank you very much. I'd like a piece of that as well. He's going to move by the Texan of Quacknin as now they come down through Coca-Cola corner, starting to bunch up a little bit more through 100R. Quacknin looking to the outside, looking to the inside up ahead of them. That's going to be too wide there, I believe, between Michael Chase and Dakota Tabler as they try to work their way through the corner. Marco Lordy able to pull his way ahead a little bit.
Yeah, he's loving seeing this battling in his mirrors, but Dakota Tabler does make the move stick on Michael Chase, and he will now chase after Michael Lordy ahead of him. Back on board with Michael now, the unlimited slip car heading towards the Dunlop chicane. Another place where if you're feeling brave, you can launch it up the inside. He closes in, but doesn't decide to go for the move for the time being. Coke Nin and Richard Swindells are battling for 14th now. There they go side by side after Nin had that little bit of a moment going through turn 1. He's going to launch it up the inside though towards turn 13, but that's always a bit of a low percentage move. The corner tightens up over the crest and ultimately he loses momentum to the point that Sabelski is now crawling all over him.
Yeah, and Brian trying to find a little bit of a later apex there to carry more momentum coming out of nets. It didn't necessarily play out for him, but now you can look. It's one of the reasons I love this final corner. So many lines that you can take through there, and it's really just all about getting momentum, getting that speed at the exit of it to make sure you are able to carry as much speed as possible down this long straightaway and into Daichi. As now the draft comes into play for these drivers yet again. The number 85 tucking up behind Kwok Nin. We haven't missed anything at the front of the field, by the way. I've been keeping my eye on it out of the corner of my eye, and this is really and truly the best battle that we've got on track.
Yeah, those gaps are tightening a little at the front though. San Diego and Adaconis are closing in on McMullen and Barrios, but they're not yet in a position to attack. So you're right, this is definitely the best of the battles so far through the first corner. And another car having a moment. That was Richard Swindells. Exactly what happened to Kwok Nin a lap ago through there. Seems that if you try and trail brake through to the apex in these cars, and certainly if you then pick up a bit of oversteer on the apex on the throttle, they just bog down. They've got quite an intrusive traction control system on these cars, I think. You can switch it off, but then the cars become really slidey, and so most of the drivers will have that on, I would imagine, and it literally just cuts all of the power from the engine completely as soon as you break traction, and that costs you a lot of momentum.
Yeah, it certainly does, and I've been watching those cars do that the last couple of laps, and it's not like they're spinning the rear tires, and that's what it is. It's sort of, as you said, that it looks like a result of just a little bit too much trail braking and trying to really get that car to rotate properly that's sending them around. As we watch here, this is Pierre Robitaille now getting involved in this battle behind Richard Swindells, trying to see what he is able to do in that Christmas present liveried number 67 machine, poking his nose as they come down into turn 13 right now. Robitaille really the newcomer into this battle, trying to see what he is able to do. He's been a pretty consistent runner this year, hasn't picked up a lot of flashy performances. Oh, as that's a car around, that's Sabelski.
Oh, and miraculously everyone avoids him. He just slid off the racing line there. It looked like for a moment he was right on the line and was going to get collected, but thankfully everyone avoids him. Some good reactions from those who were coming behind, and he will lose a lot of places. And again, look, it's under braking when you're braking on a turn, trail braking towards the apex. These cars don't like that one bit. He lost the rear of the car and luckily slid off the racing line.
And we've got a change for the lead of the race as Mariano Barrios chucking the car down to the inside of Marlon McMullen. He's going to make the move into Daichi and be able to hold that off for now. Kevin Sandiego and Justin Adaconis now licking their lips, hungrily trying to close in on the number 58 as well. They're down through Coca-Cola. Looks like there. Barrios does a great job of carrying momentum through that line into 100R. As you said, this is an area where you can make an overtake, but it's more than a little bit difficult. Barrios really hustling the car backwards and forwards. You can see he is trying to use every inch of this track.
Yeah, Barrios, I think, has changed tack now, hasn't he? He realised that San Diego and Adaconis were closing and has decided he's going to try and lead from the front and maybe do what McMullen couldn't do and break away. And he might have a chance if they keep on doing this. San Diego looking to the outside of McMullen, but actually leaves himself vulnerable to attack from Adaconis, who slings it up the inside. McMullen sort of getting pinched in the middle. There is inevitable contact. Somehow they avoid any major sideways moments. And out of nowhere, Patrick Farrell buys into this as well.
And this is getting more and more spicy. Ooh, little bit of moment of oversteer there for, I believe that was Justin Adaconis, as Farrell is now involved in this battle. Kevin Sandiego relegated to 5th, as you said. San Diego hopping on the radio here as these drivers are looking very, very unsettled.
I don't think Kevin appreciated the hip check there from Justin Adaconis, but as you spotted, Justin had a big snap of oversteer, and as he corrected it, unfortunately, San Diego's car was just in his path, but any plans to keep working together, I think, have gone well and truly out the window for now. Barrios then the leader, McMullen second, Adaconis third, and Patrick Farrell, who we really haven't mentioned up until this point, is suddenly in contention for a podium.
Yeah, he was just kind of lurking in the background here, but now he's starting to make his move ahead. That's him in the red and white machine directly behind. And now here comes San Diego down to the inside trying to make that move stick. He's going to get that move done. Move for Farrell back down into 5th place position and move San Diego back into 4th as they continue to try to push their way ahead. And I've got to say, they've got to be careful about all this trading back and forth. Ataconis, McMullen, and Barrios are praying they continue to battle because it's allowing them to slip off into the distance.
Well, we know that San Diego's got pace. He's bridged that gap to the leaders once already, so he'll be feeling confident that he can do it again. Of course, this time, though, he's doing it from 4th position. He'll have to clear Ataconis if he's going to have a go at the leading 2. Mariano Barrios, 3/4 of a second, now 8/10 to the good, though. That's about the biggest lead that anyone's had so far. So Mariano Barrios really setting sail out in front, and if he can break that to a second, 1.2 seconds maybe, he might have broken the toe.
Yeah, that's what he's going to be hoping for here, and I think if he's able to do that, that's going to be a different story altogether. As we check back a little farther in the field, back down to P9 right now. This is the battle pretty much for P7. Rob Campbell leading Andrew Sharp, leading Gerard Farewell. Michael Lordy lurking in the background on this one, as that seems to be a theme here today. Lots of drivers just being calm and patient and being able to hope that they're going to be able to pull in when others start to scrap in front of them.
It is one of those real momentum circuits, isn't it? So there is some merit, I think, in that plan. As soon as drivers in front of you start driving side by side, they will really cost themselves momentum, and that can bring you right into the battle. I also wonder if perhaps some drivers were expecting a little bit more carnage in the opening stages. Apart from 1 or 2 bits of contact, it's been a very clean opening 15 minutes of racing. So perhaps some of those who have been lurking further back now realising that it's time to go.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. As we are over 10 minutes down in this race, I would probably say we're about a lap away from the pit stop sequence starting to open up here, and that's going to be another big call for these drivers as we watch that battle for P7. Doesn't look like here that Farewell's going to try to poke his nose down to the inside. Indeed, they are going to jump on the binders as his teammate Andrew Sharp, both of them for YS Motorsports, look like they're playing well together. But back to that point about the pit stops, I've got to think here that you're going to want to be pitting with a buddy. You don't want to be doing what we normally see here in this series and trying to come out in clean air. I think if you lose that draft companion in front of you, it's going to put you into a real problem.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. If you can pit with someone of a similar pace to you, then that could be the best way to go. It's interesting, though, we are seeing some drivers able to find pace on their own. Marlon McMullen, for example, pulling away from Justin Ataconis now, and he is closing in on Mariano Barrios. So there are drivers out there capable of finding a bit of speed, but certainly if you can pit with someone of the same pace as you, certainly if you're pitting early, I think that is important to do. Side-by-side action into Dunlop, though, and that is going to be a really late move for Andrew Sharp. He clears Rob Campbell, though. That was a pretty much picture-perfect move into the chicane.
Yeah, leaving that just about as late as you can imagine and barely being able to pull it off. Credit where credit is due to Andrew Sharp to be able to get that done, but he's going to run wide there on the exit into on the entrance into 13 and 14. He's able to keep the position ahead of him, but not nearly as well as he would like to, and I think that may open up a little bit of an opportunity here, at least a thought, for Rob Campbell to be able to try to move his way ahead. They cross over the line here. Doesn't look like we're seeing a lot of drivers necessarily coming down into pit lane, but I'm seeing a lot of drivers here starting to weave a little bit, and that's because Jonathan Dam did his best to move down to the right, try to break the draft off of everybody in front of him, and the rest of the field like a giant serpent moving down to follow him.
Yeah, and that is something that can cause problems here at Fuji when we get into the pit stops. People running right in the wheel tracks of the cars ahead might be in danger of following them towards pit entry and then running straight into the back of them. Nice move back up the inside for Rob Campbell here. He'll reclaim 7th place from Andrew Sharp in this to and fro battle, which is really doing nothing but hold them both up, because Farewell and Lorty and in fact Michael Chase are now right back with them again. So 5 cars under a blanket as they continue to fight for 7th place.
Yeah, they continue to fight here. Campbell trying to close in on Jonathan Dam up ahead of him. That's the car that you just keep seeing little glimpses of right there. That sort of teal, black, and white machine. He runs ahead of them only about 1.3 seconds up the road, so he's going to be able to stay out of the draft range here of Campbell unless Campbell gets a mega couple of sectors here, and it looks like he may not be able to do that because Andrew Sharp may try to throw that move again down into Dunlop. He's certainly thinking about it, but Campbell goes a little bit defensive, hugging down to the inside, the 777, making sure that Sharp's not going to be able to take that line. Sharp in turn is going to have to jump on the binders. He'll stay in line. I think that was Michael Lordy potentially getting things a little bit wrong behind them, and that's going to cost him a position to Gerard Farewell.
Yeah, I don't know whether Farewell was already up the inside, but Lordy certainly opened the door for him as they went into the chicane and made that pretty easy for the number 65 car. So Michael Lordy back down into 10th position. Michael Chase for company right in behind him. Again, you see the variety of lines that they can take up through turns 14, 15 and into turn 16, allowing them to run wheel to wheel with no real advantage given to either driver. Right up on the curbs, and these cars don't like those big curb hops, and that I think is going to shuffle this order even further as they head down the straight.
Yeah, and I believe that car right in the middle of them there is a bit of lapped traffic, unless I'm greatly mistaken. No, I believe that is Gerard Farewell. He's just got some damage on that car. Not entirely sure where he picked that up, but Farewell in a big heaping of trouble. We jump back up to the front of the race where Marlon McMullen has had to deal with a little bit of lap traffic. He's tired of waiting around here at this point, and he is up to the lead of the race.
Yeah, made that move down the pit straight, so he caught Mariano Barrios and didn't waste any time trying to make the move, and with good reason, because he'd brought with him Justin Adakonis, so he wanted to try and clear Barrios before Justin could start attacking him. And now, of course, the hope for Marlon is that those two do start to trip over each other, and perhaps he can make a little bit of a break. That was aggressive for Michael Lordy, all four wheels over the inside of the corner there at turn 3. Easy to get a slowdown doing that, though.
Yeah, very easy to be able to pick up that slowdown. And remember that there is some damage on that car. I had earlier miscalled that was on Gerard Farewell. It is on Michael Lordy's machine. I'm not sure where he picked that up, but you can see that left side of the car looking a little bit worse for wear, and as well as the right rear, it looks like. So not entirely sure where he would have picked that up, but he is running with some problems here.
Yeah, certainly. Doesn't seem to be slowing him down too much, though. And again, that's something the drivers will learn week after week. How much does damage affect the performance of these cars? They're not very aero-sensitive exactly, so a little bit of buckled and broken bodywork might not slow you down too much. It's when you start bending the steering, damaging the radiator and the engine, that is something you'll definitely notice. But he's staying competitive, staying in this little group of cars, Michael Lordy, and still has a good chance at a top 10 finish. 17.5 minutes to go then, DJ. When do we expect to see some cars heading for pit lane? There's no real rush to get in just yet, is there?
No, there certainly isn't, and this is about the halfway point in the race, so this is officially pit stop window open time, as on cue, somebody likes to prove my point, Andrew Sharp and Gerard Farewell, two of the YS Motorsport drivers, both decide to come down into pit lane, clearly pitting together as we talked about, and they're going to fall down through the order, as now Michael Lordy tries to close down. That's Kwok in right there, and I believe a lapped car that they're trying to work their way around. Whoa, as Lordy makes a big move down to the inside.
I'll tell you what, if that car is down on straight line speed, he's making up for it under braking, and then gives a bit of a hip check on the exit to Michael Chase as well, just to make absolutely sure of the move. I'm not convinced he has made sure of it though. Michael trying to come back at him towards turn 3, but does sensibly drop in behind again. Michael Lordy was not being denied that 9th place then, and he, in fairly robust fashion, made his way up into 9th spot then. They continue on their way through the double apex right-hander 4 and 5. Now that we're seeing pit lane starting to get some activity though, I wonder which of the lead group, which really is only a 3-way group now, McMullen, Barrios and Adakonis, which of those 3 will blink first?
Yeah, I think that's the real question here to follow at this point, as Mariano Barrios tries to see what he is able to do up at the front of the field. But right now, we follow them as they come around here. This is Barrios just behind McMullen, taking a wider line there. Justin Adakonis going to be following him through, and they're all going to be perfectly together now as they come up here into the Panasonic corner, trying to line this up. And as we've said, we've had a couple of drivers come down into pit lane already. Anthony Drang looks like he's on a particularly long stop. That's Marlon McMullen holding down to the inside. Now, I don't know if that's for a pit move, if he's going to be diving down in. No. Yes, it is. It is going to be a pit stop here for Marlon McMullen, and he's going to be the only one out of the top 4 that decides to come on in.
Interesting that no one chose to follow him there. Patrick Farrell has pitted, but he was a second or so back, wasn't he, at the time? So not exactly able to work together. Some traffic coming out of the pit lane just in front of the leaders who are side by side. And just like that, Justin Adakonis has got himself into the lead of the race. The points leader coming into tonight by 10 points over Mariano Barrios is at the head of the field. He's at least the third or fourth different leader we've had. I'm sure he won't be the last.
Yeah, and that's Anthony Dring that they're able to get their way around right now, or at least Justin Adakonis was able to get his way by Barrios here, and Kevin Sandiego running into a little bit of problems trying to get around that 8:14. That's going to cost them probably 3/4 tenths of a second as they were checked up coming through 100R. Again, some big wide lines here for Mariano Barrios. He is just making it his intent to try to use every inch of this Fuji Raceway as possible.
Yeah, he'll be a bit frustrated with that, and Kevin Sandiego as well, because the lapped car didn't exactly jump out of the way, and it really did cost them time. You can see they've dropped about 8 tenths now to Adakonis, just about within slipstreaming range, but of course if they're starting to head into the pit lane soon, that 8 tenths of a second could make all the difference, and in fact the spin there for the car that they were just trying to negotiate, and so that actually takes it out of the equation for now. But these three really pushing hard. You're right about Barrios. He really looks like he's pushing to the very limit, and we've seen it's quite easy to overstep that mark in these cars, so he has to be careful.
Well, and speaking of that, just ran a little bit wide there on the exit of nets and found himself bounding over those big sausage curbs. Now, as they come onto the main straightaway here, again, all three of those cars taking a little bit of a hit there. And I think we're starting to see some of the damage that I noticed. It may be as a result of those sausage curbs, because it looks like here that Adakonis and Sandiego have a little bit of front-end damage, as now it's going to be Adakonis that decides to come into pit lane. Barrios and Sandiego staying out.
And so Adakonis again from the lead, choosing to pit rather than stay out there and battle. Now, the question here is where he will come out in relation to McMullen and Farrell, who have already stopped. Another lead change now, and Kevin Sandiego takes his first turn at the front of the pack. But whilst they're out there dicing away like this, are they going slower than some of those who have already stopped?
Well, that's the question here. I've got my eye on Marlon McMullen right now as he's coming down the start-finish line. I'm curious to see where he's going to come out in relation to Justin Adakonis. But right now, it looks like Mariano Barrios certainly continuing to push here, taking a wider line through 100R. As it looks like he tries to put pressure onto the back of Kevin Sandiego. Sandiego not buckling at all. By the way, Adakonis is out, and he is out about 2 seconds ahead of Marlon McMullen. So McMullen not having the best running here, and that looks like it's going to hurt him.
Yeah, Adakonis was stationary in the pit lane for 1 second less than Adakonis 1 second less than McMullen, I should say, but everyone was averaging about 9.5 seconds stationary apart from Justin. So has he done something different then on the strategy? Is he definitely going to have enough fuel to make it to the end? These are all questions that will be on our minds for another 12 minutes. He might have a clearer idea of how well he's managed that, but either way, it's got him the track position, and actually might be enough to keep him ahead of these two as well when they pit.
Yeah, it sounds like we've got a couple of more drivers making a signal here that they're coming down into pit lane. Plenty of drivers giving that signal to other drivers to make sure that they know if they are coming in. We take a look on board here with Mariano Barrios. No fade down to the inside for Kevin Sandiego. He's going to keep leading along. Barrios looks like the both of them are going to speed on by pit lane, and it looks like Barrios going to give a little bit of a bump draft here. That could also explain a little bit of the front end damage that we've been seeing on these cars.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of made for bump drafting, these cars. Very flat front and rear bumpers, but yeah, if you do it too hard, you can easily do a little bit of damage. Jonathan Dam pits from third position, so Rob Campbell temporarily inherits P3. Sensible stuff there, though, from Barrios. If they're going to stay out for a few more laps, they need to make sure they're running quick lap times. Otherwise, what's the point? They might as well have pitted and continued to battle with the likes of Adakonis and McMullen. So staying out late, working together, trying to lap a little bit more quickly than those that have stopped already. And to do that, I think teamwork, temporarily at least, is the way to go.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And clearly that bump draft, it's going to speed up the both of them as they run, and so that'll help them. You mentioned Jonathan Dam, Michael Lordy, looks like Robitaille and Austin Bartlett Chase all coming down into pit lane as well. We still wait for pit stops here from a good chunk of the field, but that number starting to dwindle away here. Also looking like he's dwindling away just a little bit, Mariano Barrios, as they get on the binders here for Dunlop Corner. Looks like he lost about a 1/10 of a second through that running. You see a couple of cars up in front. That is Malcolm Foster, I believe, the first one that they're going to come up against. So here they come now down through turn 13. This is the portion of the track where Barrios really isn't going to be able to make any sort of overtake. He's just got to hold up behind. And I've got to be thinking here, with under 10 minutes to go, these fuel tanks are probably pretty dry. Wouldn't be surprised if we see San Diego and Barrios coming on into the pits.
Well, let's wait and see then. Out of the final corner they go, and San Diego is sort of easing towards the right-hand side of the road. He's being followed by Barrios, but that might just be for the slipstream. I suspect the leader will be in this time. Is Barrios going to follow him? Let's see. No, they're both coming down the pit road. Yes, there we go. The very late blend, and look at that for commitment into the pit lane. Mariano Barrios closing right in on Kevin San Diego. So where will they pop out in relation to Adaconis and McMullen? They are the two first cars who have pitted, remember. Oh, and by the way, McMullen is catching Adaconis as well.
Yeah, he is. He's been able to bring that gap in from over 2 seconds to down to about 1.2 right now. And I think this is going to be good news here for Justin Adaconis, because that's Aaron Law right in front of him. Law has yet to pit, and now it looks like Aaron's going to be coming down into pit lane, so Justin was able to steal a little bit of the draft off of him. As now they come by pit entry right now. Still waiting in the box are San Diego and Barrios. It looks like Barrios was about a second faster, and that's going to allow him to jump into the lead. But where are they going to come out in results here in regards to Adaconis and McMullen? Looks like Adaconis is going to pull out into the lead, and just like a cross-stitch pattern, they're all going to come right back into line.
Look at that. Even with the pit stops and all of them pitting on different laps pretty much, they've still come out absolutely together. Interesting though, Barrios had the quickest pit stop of any of them, nearly a second quicker than Adaconis, and we mentioned that he was a second faster than McMullen, so a little bit less fuel taken on board, perhaps a little bit of fuel saving has been going on there for Mariano whilst he was in the draft of the cars ahead. We saw him working with San Diego, wasn't it, going into their in-lap essentially. Looks like he's been saving some fuel that allowed for a quick pit stop, and that's what's got him out ahead of McMullen.
Yeah, it certainly has there. 7.8 seconds, that is about the quickest stop that we've seen all day, but this race is nowhere near done with about 8 minutes left to go. All of our top three pretty close to each other. Adaconis, though, starting to stretch his legs up in front, about 1.1, 1.2 seconds, and I especially think here if McMullen and San Diego aren't careful, if they continue to battle with Mariano Barrios, that could be a death knell, and it could allow for Justin Adaconis to slip off into the distance.
Yeah, they really do need to work together, these three. The problem is that McMullen was catching Adaconis all by himself. He won't feel the need to work with Barrios. He wants to get past Mariano, who at this stage is holding him up ever so slightly, so I think they will start battling. But we've seen already, haven't we? Mariano is capable of taking a step back, thinking big picture. I think if McMullen comes past him, Mariano will be content to sit behind and follow him up to the leader. Already you can see that draft taking effect, though, and that's what Adaconis noticed. He weaves over to the right-hand side of the road, tries to break the toe, but I think that might be in vain.
Yeah, as it was at about 1.1 seconds, it's now down to about 8.5 tenths of a second. Dakota Tabler looks like he's had an issue. He's going to tow back down into pit lane here. Not seeing an overtake from Marlon McMullen, so good heads up there from him, although he certainly was close enough. I think there was a little bit of feathering of the throttle there to make sure that he didn't want to go for the overtake. Now they come down through Daichi and through turn 2. Again, it looks like McMullen is the closest, most likely to try to put a little bit of a press on here, but he doesn't want to attack too aggressively on the back of Mariano Barrios, as that gap is still dangerously high at about 8-9 tenths of a second.
They are starting to drop San Diego, though, aren't they? Kevin just seemingly doesn't quite have the raw pace here at Fuji that we've seen from him in previous weeks. Certainly last week at Summit Point when he had the pole position time. Here at Fuji, just struggling a little bit. He's hanging on, and he'll be really hoping that they start to battle ahead, which they might, because Mariano Barrios has had a brilliant first half of this lap, and all of a sudden is right back on the tail of the leader.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to look at sector times, as it certainly does look like. I think that was an error there out of Justin Ataconis that was able to cause that. But let's be very, very clear here that Barrios putting in some fantastic times. Indeed, on the last lap, he was the fastest out of anyone over the course of the race through Sector 3. So a very, very good run for him. San Diego also looking like he's able to hold into the back of it as all the drivers, bar Marlon McMullen there, running wide on the exit of Nets corner. This is the moment in the race here, I think, where if you've been driving clean and conservative and not using any off tracks, I think you start to use a few of them here as a way that you've banked them in and try to use them to make up any time you can make.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the time where you stop worrying about the off-tracks, you stop worrying about the X's, and you just start to try and attack and get the lead. That's exactly what Mariano Barrios is about to do. Remember, these two are separated by just 10 points at the top of the championship table right now in Ataconis' favour. Looked like Barrios was going to push him into turn 1. Does have a little jink to the inside before darting back over onto the racing line. So that was interesting. He pushed Justin along a little while, and then when he did peek to the inside, wasn't actually able to outbrake him. So was that just a little sighter for Barrios, or was that all he has?
I'm not sure, but the question here for me, is we've got contact farther back down in the field. Jerron Farrell and Rob Campbell getting into each other down into Daichi, and both of those drivers going to find themselves spun around, unfortunately. Excuse me, it was Michael Lordy and Michael Chase, I believe, that got into the side of one another. But I wonder here for Barrios if he's going to be thinking a little bit about running this down into the corner, about where he wants to be on the last lap. As we take a look at this was a pretty cut and dry just misunderstanding and a big thunk down the start-finish straight.
Yes, what you call a misunderstanding, I call careless driving there, to be honest. There was one car moving over on the other, and that very much caused the contact, and what spectacular contact it was as well. That is by far the fastest point on the track, and you do not want to be touching wheels there, that is for sure. So Michael Lordy's car with an awful lot of damage, and he will do well to get back out on track before the flag. Here is the replay. Wait for the contact. You see even the movement of the steering wheel, just a twitch to the left, and that was enough for a tiny bit of contact that had very dramatic results.
Well, as you said, down the start-finish straightaway, the fastest portion on the track, and making contact there, just not exactly what you want to have happen whatsoever. As the drivers now coming across the start-finish line, 2 laps to go, being given by Barney the flagman. And I'm starting to wonder here if this may be a little bit like a Daytona situation where drivers are thinking about trying to be in second place going into the final corner, but clearly Mariano Barrios isn't thinking like that. Kevin San Diego, by the way, just set the fastest lap of the race last time out. Here comes Marlon McMullen trying to make it a 2-for-1 on Ataconis. They're going to put him down into third place, and Kevin San Diego even taking a little bit of a look.
Yeah, remember, 3 of these 4 drivers have a race win this season. The odd one out is Marlon McMullen, so he's hungrier than anyone to try and get it. He's up the inside into turn 3. Really difficult place to go side by side, and they're all back together again now. Kevin San Diego well and truly a part of this fight as they start to trip over each other. Barrios back to the front, and Ataconis back up the inside of McMullen, I think, will retake second.
Yeah, I think he will. Ooh, almost coming together there down into the hairpin. That got a little bit hairy, no pun intended, as they came around. But they've got to be careful, as now Barrios has about a 0.6 of a second lead over them. And now San Diego starting to look onto the back here of Marlon McMullen, trying to see what he is able to do. As now McMullen's going to have a look down into the inside of Dunlop. And now San Diego is going to be able to take advantage of that, try to push that black and green machine around to the outside. It's going to come to nothing, and they're going to stay in the same order they went into the corner as.
Yeah, Mariano Barrios just trying to break away, but I think Ataconis has got enough to stay with him. To your point earlier on about where you want to be on the last lap, from what I've seen of the slipstream, as powerful as it is, I don't think it's powerful enough to get you ahead before the line. If you come off the final corner second, I think that's where you'll stay. So really what I'd be wanting is to take the lead into turn 1 this time and leave everyone else fighting in your wheel tracks. But Mariano Barrios might have enough of a lead that he can actually defend first place into turn 1, and from there I think that he is in the pound seat.
Well, if you are right about that, it is all going to come down to this first corner here. We're going to have to see how they play themselves out. Here comes Marlon McMullen taking a look down to the inside of Justin Ataconis. Look at that. Is that a little bit of helpfulness maybe for Mariano Barrios wanting to give the draft over to McMullen because he knows he doesn't want to give it to his title rival, as McMullen now tries to go for the 2-for-1, looking down to the inside of Mariano Barrios. Now it's going to be Justin Ataconis for Red Tip Racing looking down to the inside. They're going to be 3 wide on the run here into Coca-Cola. They've got to be careful about how they try to sort this out. The latest on the brakes are going to be Barrios and Ataconis. Marlon McMullen still trying to make it look. They're still 3 wide. McMullen barely gets that underneath them, and somehow, miraculously, they come back in single file order.
We had some fantastic last lap racing for the win a week ago at Summit Point. They're putting on an even better show here at Fuji. McMullen almost into the back of Ataconis as they drop into the hairpin, and they are all back together again. It is a winner-takes-all fight here. Whoever makes the most successful move in the next few corners will take home the victory, and it could go to any one of these 4.
It certainly could, as now here comes Ataconis with a little bit of a poke to the outside on the 77 going down into Dunlop. That's going to actually open up the door here for Marlon McMullen, but Ataconis able to shut that off. Now does San Diego have a little bit of a run on McMullen? No, he does not. They come back into single file order as they come through turn 13. It's running out of opportunities here for Justin Ataconis to be able to get a move on Mariano Barrios as they now work their way through nets. It's only 1 more corner to go, and then the long straightaway. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see a move here going through Panasonic, and indeed they say in single file order, 3.5 tenths of a second the gap for Mariano Barrios, but it looks like there that Ataconis ran a little bit wide, the gap expanding up to 5 tenths of a second, and now I've got to be worried about Marlon McMullen being able to take second place away from Justin Ataconis. At the front of the field though, it will be Mariano Barrios coming to the line. He's going to take victory easily after a very intense fight, and then it's going to be Ataconis and McMullen able to beat him by 61 thousandths of a second.
Wow, Mariano Barrios judged that to perfection. He defended his lead successfully into this corner at the beginning of the last lap. Well, it wasn't quite as straightforward from then on as I predicted it would be, but he did get back to the flag first, and a well-deserved second victory of the season, and he takes some crucial points away from Justin Ataconis. He would have been rooting there for McMullen to try and get past Justin as well, but even so, that lead gap in the championship will come down ever so slightly in what is likely to be a championship battle that rages on right to the end of the season.
We check back a little bit farther in the field here. This is the number 85 machine coming out of the final corner. That's Brian Sebeleski. Matthew Wegener behind him, trying to see if he is able to get anything to go. Looking now is Wegener trying to see if he's going to be able to make that move. It doesn't look like he will, and Sebeleski will be able to hold on for 15th. Wegener have to settle for 16th.
Yeah, another close run to the line though. That draft is just powerful enough if you get a good exit from the last corner to get sort of level with the other car by the line, but not quite enough it seems to make the move stick before the line. Some really good battles though, a lot further down the field. We just don't get the time during the race to drag our eyes away from the lead battling to show you all of this, but almost every driver on the grid, DJ, will end this race feeling that they were involved in a really, really good scrap, and that's exactly what you want from a series like this. One make racing at its best.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely incredible stuff as we now run through the final finishing order here. Barrios able to take victory over Ataconis, and Marlon McMullen for Precision Racing Esports able to come in P3. Kevin San Diego had to settle for P4 with Patrick Farrell a little bit in an island unto himself. Then it was Jonathan Dam and Andrew Sharp. Kwok Nin with a good result to be in 8th place, and Gerard Farewell and Rob Campbell to round out your top 10. Then it was Andrew Moran, followed by Pierre Robitaille, Austin Bartlett Chase, and Michael Chase finishing pretty close to one another. Brian Sebeleski and Matthew Wegener are coming across the line very close as well. Matthew Zegelin was in 17th, followed by Kevin Berquist with Richard Swindells and Aaron Law rounding out your top 20. It was 21st of William Sullivan, followed by Kelly Greenhoe, then Malcolm Foster, Ian Cabana, Michael Lordy, Buddy Chamberlain, and then we get into some of the drivers that had a little bit of rough running out there. Dakota Tabler, Anthony Drink, Brett Karakov, Josh Kimball, and I believe that is the end of your 30-car grid, and that is going to lead us right on into podium interviews. And first and foremost, it is our victor, Mariano Barrios. let's start at the end. Talk me through that last about a lap and a half, because that was absolutely frenetic racing.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me. It was pretty intense. Thankfully, everybody around me kept it clean. I was getting pretty nervous when I was 3 wide in the middle, but I didn't want to back out of it. I've lost too many on the last lap, and I was going to go for it. And thankfully, for once, I was able to hold it around the outside. So it was a great race and a great battle with everyone there.
Well, talk to me about your mentality about taking that 3 wide. I mean, you didn't want to back out of it. How hard were you gripping the steering wheel, and what was going through your mind at that moment?
Man, it was. I was just hoping that we could survive. I was thinking, there's no way we're gonna survive 3 wide through here. This is gonna end in tears. But I wasn't gonna back out. I didn't want to lose it. I've lost. That was 2 race wins that I've lost. You know, around the outside in a corner. So I was gonna hang on to it and hope for the best.
Well, you certainly did hope for the best there. I also want to ask you, how much fuel saving were you doing over the course of that? Because it looked like your pit stop was faster than just about anybody else that we saw.
Yeah, that was usually, especially in a track like this where I knew there was a lot of slipstream, I was saving pretty aggressively at the beginning of the race. And then once I saw that we were going to start battling, I kind of started making moves to get to the front and hoped that I had saved enough. And I did finish the race with about 1/10 of a gallon of gas. So it was close, but I did try to save as much fuel as possible in the beginning.
Well, you did a great job. You're able to walk away with the victory today, Mariano. Who makes this possible? Who'd you like to thank?
As usual, huge thanks to my wife who was watching the race, said it was really intense on over there. So always appreciate her putting up with all that and supporting me in it.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time out. It's it's Tsukuba, excuse me.
All right, see you guys next week.
All right, that was your victor, Mariano Barrios, and I believe, Andy, you've been able to catch up with P number 8 here, Kwok Nin, who had a pretty good race.
Yeah, absolutely, DJ. Kwok Nin joins us now in the broadcast booth, and a really solid result for you there, 8th place, and you flew a little bit under the radar this week. A nice, quiet, calm race for you for once.
Yeah, Fuji is actually a fun track to for me to race on. I really wish I could, had more tight battles up front, but then there's a whole bunch of commotion around and back, and I couldn't. And I basically just lost the pack.
We saw you having a couple of moments through the first corner as well. It looks like these cars were really struggling through that first turn, snapping sideways, then bogging down on the exit. Is that something specific to this track or just a trait of the GR86?
I think it's a trait of the GR86. It still has a little bit of that bicycle effect when you brake too hard and then you let go of the gas too fast, and then it just gets and tips on the two wheels. So not a fun thing to experience, but if you just balance the car just right as you turn it in, you can get it right.
Looks like you're getting on top of the car now, though. How are you enjoying what I guess is your first season of racing in the GR86, this being a new car to iRacing? Are you finding that it's living up to what you expected?
Yeah, it is. I just wish I could keep up with the faster guys to have closer battles. If I do, it'll be very exciting.
Well, we're halfway through the season now, so you're starting to find some form, which is nice to see. What are your thoughts for the second half of the season? Any tracks in particular you're looking forward to?
No, I actually haven't looked at the schedule. I'm just kind of going with the flow and get on to practice right before the race. So hopefully with me getting used to the car by now, I can fight for the top 5 of the championship.
Well, you've got some real treats coming up. Alton Park in particular, I reckon you're going to enjoy Alton Park. It's the greatest racetrack in the world, in my not-so-humble opinion, and I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Kwok, thank you for joining us here next week.
Sure, thank you guys. Have a good night.
So Kwok Nin then, who enjoyed, as we said, a pretty quiet race there, DJ, really, but got through it cleanly and seems like he's enjoying his experience in the GR86.
Yes, he certainly does, as we also get ready to head over to Tsukuba next time out, as we said. But don't worry, if you didn't have enough Fuji action here tonight, Well, rest assured, we've got a little bit more of it, because that's right, the GT4 Fixed Series is ready to go racing from Fuji International Speedway once again. That's right, we're going to set these multi-class cars, this multiple make series, loose on this speedway, and it's going to be pretty fantastic to see how everything is going to shake itself out. Before we get to the action, though, let's also go ahead and take a look at our schedule here. As we said, we head to Fuji this time a little bit different, not having the Dunlop chicane on it, so that'll be a little bit of a change. We then head to Brands Hatch, Tsukuba, Sebring, Nürburgring, and Road America, and Andy, I've got to imagine you're pretty excited to see us head to Brands Hatch here next time out.
Absolutely. I'm a fan of any of the UK circuits. You may have caught a hint of bias towards Alton Park, that being my local track. That's featuring on the GR86s, and great to have Brands Hatch here as part of the GT4 schedule. And what I like about both of the schedules that we have looked at tonight is the great variety of tracks. You know, we've got this nice mix of the big FIA Grade 1 Formula 1 tracks, all the way down to some of the more quirky kind of national level tracks like Brands Hatch, Tsukuba. It's a real mix, something for everyone, and it will provide lots of different kinds of racing, which is always nice.
Yeah, it certainly is. Let's go ahead and take a look here at our championship standings. A little bit more spread out at the top of the charts, with John Bodefer leading the way with 127 points, Michael Diaz in second, and Miguel Vigo in third. Bodefer and Vigo, by the way, both driving for the Geodesic team. Adam Brockway sits fourth with the third member of Geodesic in P5, that being Justin Ream, then Vincent Trepanier, followed by Simon Therier, Nicholas Riceputo, Nicholas Belmont, and Keith Bonilla that round out your top 10. We also have teams standings there, and well, as we mentioned, the Geodesic name quite a few times, as you can imagine. Alpine Stars Geodesic McLaren leading the way with 224 points, with Precision Racing Esports 111 a little ways back from then. Then Unit Sim Sports Alpha and Alpine Stars Geodesic Mercedes tied with 149 points in a very, very fierce battle for P3. We also have a relative tie there between YS Motorsport Gold and YS Motorsport Black for P5. Race Factory sits in 7th with 119 points. Then it's Can-Am Racing, Delta Sport, and Precision Racing Esports 112. And that's going to go ahead and bring us into our coverage here for this session. We are in the middle right now, or just finishing up practice, which means we're going to be able to check the entirety of qualifying here in this series. And, well, Andy, we heard the call being issued last week. Watch out for the McLarens. The straight line speed of that British car going to be very hard to beat around here.
Yeah, certainly. They were very, very strong at Mount Panorama a week ago, weren't they? And that is a circuit that does feature those two really long straights. Very technical section across the top of the mountain, but they really seem to stretch their legs up Mountain Straight and down Conrad Straight. Here, they've only got the one really long straight, but it's a really, really long straight, and I think the McLarens will for sure be strong here. We also saw fuel mileage really play a big part in the race a week ago, with our eventual winner, Justin Ream, saying that he ran out of fuel as he crossed the line to take the checkered flag. So, again, given how close we're expecting the racing to be here tonight, expect to see a few drivers trying to take a few risks with strategy to find a small advantage over their rivals.
Yeah, and I think the big storyline here is going to be if anybody can break up that Geodesic party up at the front of the field. We've seen Bodefer, Ream, and their third teammate, Miguel Vigo, really and truly have a pretty stranglehold up at the top of the field. We've got plenty of talented drivers here in this, so I think it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to be able to do, because if those three cars are able to work together, rest assured that strategy is going to come in pretty heavily, and I think they'll be working together more than fighting over the course of this race.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see teamwork playing its part here for sure, and as we saw in the GR86s, you don't really want to be pitting on your own either, and so that is where it helps to have a teammate out there. You know, you can choose to pit at about the same time. If you want to try and make a move on someone, you can do that in tandem as well. Now, obviously, that slipstream effect, not quite as powerful in the GT4s as it was in the GR86s, but it's actually not that dissimilar. I really think the GR86 is almost like, I guess you could call it a GT5 car. It is just a step below these cars in performance. The style of racing is not that dissimilar, and so some of that teamwork for sure will come into play.
Yeah, it certainly will, and I have to agree with you there. That's a really, really good comparison when we talk about the GR86. Sort of like a GT5 type machinery is really and truly the way to think about it. Drivers right now starting their first flying lap around Fuji, and well, the racing here is going to be, I think, pretty similar to what we saw in the last round. The only real difference here that we're seeing in the track is it is a little bit later in the day. It's about 4 o'clock or so, 5 o'clock, excuse me, virtual standard time, and that will mean that track temperatures are a little bit warmer, about 77. One big thing for me here is that we've got some pretty gusting winds at about 11 to 12 miles per hour, and so that could throw off some of the aerodynamics here with the crosswind coming across this track.
Yeah, definitely. It depends what direction it's blowing in, but there are quite a few corners where you really don't want a crosswind. The whole run really through turns 3 and 4 being quite high speed, you're really leaning on the aerodynamics of the cars through there, and so a gusting wind can have a big effect on that. And of course, if you've got a headwind or a tailwind down the main straight, that can have an effect on things as well. Headwind will exaggerate the effect of the slipstream. A tailwind means that you're going to arrive at the braking point at turn 1 a little bit faster than you're anticipating, so we'll be able to figure that out. I think if we see a few people out braking themselves down there, that might give us some clues as to which way that wind's blowing.
Yeah, may give us a little bit of an idea here as we watch Philippe Magnon bringing his Porsche around here. The Porsche not expected to be one of the stronger cars necessarily. Indeed, it's not all that heavily featured. The most featured car in this GT4 fixed series being the Mercedes, closely followed by the BMW. But we've got our first times being put down on the board as it's Simon Thiriet up to the top of the charts. Oh, I take that back. Now it's Vincent Trepanier with a time of 1:42.445. Now, to the surprise of no one, the Nun 12 of Justin Ream jumps up to the top with a time of 1:42.226.
Yeah, Justin Ream, a lights to flag winner a week ago at Bathurst. Sort of. He did have a fight on his hands throughout that race, but he started first, finished first, and he is looking quick here as well. But John Bodefer, his teammate, comes through and actually only manages 4th. I suspect that was just a little bit of a banker lap there. I think there's probably a bit more in the tank for the geodesic McLaren, which turns its way through that first corner and runs right up over the curbs. 2 wheels over the edge of that curb is fine. 4 wheels though, and he would be flirting with an off track, which he doesn't want, because you'll only have a limited number of laps around here in these GT4 cars where those tyres are in the right window, so you really need to capitalise on that and not make mistakes, because you won't have many chances to go again.
No, you certainly will not. As here we watch John Bodefer bringing that McLaren around down into the hairpin right now, trying to see if he's able to do it again, tracking out wide, using a little bit more of the downforce on these cars. These are a little bit more aero-dependent machines, as we said earlier, and so that means that you're going to be able to take these corners a little bit faster, and indeed a little bit more horsepower underneath the cars as well, and that's why you're seeing lap times decreased by about 15 seconds or so around here, and so that's really going to be the biggest change here for all of these drives as they go. John Bodefer, though, now bringing the car down through the last couple of corners, bringing it around, trying to maximize that speed as much as possible, carrying a good line there out of Panasonic right now, and he will now get on the loud pedal and just have a moment to relax here as he brings his car across the line, hoping to improve on his best time here of a 1:42.60. I just saw Jose Lockwood be able to put in a good time as well. Let's see what Bodefer is able to do. Abner Acosta able to improve. I think that's an improvement there for John Bodefer, up to the top of the charts.
Yeah, about 3/4 of a tenth clear of Justin Ream, his teammate, so far so good for Geodesic. Most drivers going quicker on their second lap than their first, so again that shows me that they're perhaps just taking a lap or so to get their tyres up to temperature. Abner Acosta with a good effort there in the front-engined Aston Martin Vantage GT4 to get himself up into the top 5. Not a car that I necessarily would have expected to see that sort of pace out of here, although actually the front-engine cars holding their own. Troncoso and Terrier, remember, 3rd and 4th fastest. They're both at the wheel of Mercedes AMG GT4s, so it's not all down to the mid-engine cars, which perhaps I expected given the technical nature of this track.
Yeah, and those mid-engine cars really help produce that good rotation around the corner. The front-engine cars, you've got to sort of chuck them in a little bit more. You've got to really throw them into the corner a little bit more, and you can lean on them. And really, as opposed to what we heard out of the GR86 drivers, where you've got to be careful about that trail braking and that over-rotation, you really need a lot of trail braking in those front-engine entries of the Mercedes or the Aston Martin to be able to get that car to properly head around the corner.
Yeah, for sure. It's a unique driving style required, one I personally really enjoy. These front-engine GT cars are a real blast to drive. More improvements coming in. Michael Diaz going 4th place. He's the most high-profile improvement until Justin Ream goes fastest of everyone again. A 142.0. Manuel Troncoso, I think, had briefly moved into pole position there, but Ream goes faster again. What can Abner Acosta do? He was 5th, drops down into 7th place before that lap time comes in. And actually, 7th place is where he stays.
And he'll stay there. John Bodefer able to improve a little bit more. He'll bring the 67 up into 2nd place. Only 3 thousandths of a second off of his teammate. That's very, very impressive. Clearly goes to show that Ream and Bodefer are doing a great job. I would say that they've got their setup dialed in, but of course, Andy, we're running in a fixed setup series, so it's all down to the drivers behind the wheel.
But therefore, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Two very evenly matched drivers running out of the same team, running exactly the same car with exactly the same setup, and they've set almost exactly the same lap time. That is remarkable stuff from Ream and Bodefer. You'll notice as Simon Theriault comes past the chicane that he is not taking the chicane that we saw the GR86s taking earlier on. A slight variation on the layout that DJ mentioned earlier on. We have this option to skip the chicane, and these slightly bigger, more cumbersome GT4 cars preferring to stretch their legs around the outside. That does take away one of those side-by-side racing opportunities though, so when we get into the race in a couple of minutes, that may well just change the dynamic slightly.
Yeah, it really makes that corner a lot faster. It really becomes a third gear corner as opposed to bringing it all the way down into first gear like you would find when we are running the full Dunlop chicane. And it really does change the layout of the track there for all of them. Now Theriault is going to come across the line. Trepanier able to improve up into P5. Alex Bergster moving around. Fernando Yaquez up into P8 there. Again, very, very narrow margins in this field. First and 21st. Separated only by a second. This could be another very closely run race.
Yeah, absolutely. That proves that the fixed setups are working well. It also proves that any balanced performance that's been applied is working equally well too, because we've got McLarens, Mercedes, Aston Martins and Porsches and even BMW all represented inside the top 10. So I think basically all of the manufacturers on the grid represented inside the top 10. It's a very, very evenly matched field, and the joy of GT racing is that all of these different manufacturers who design completely different cars are able to compete on such a level playing field. It gives us great racing, it gives the drivers a great level playing field, and it looks as though in qualifying it's delivering.
Absolutely delivering as Keaton Marcheski comes across the line there to come home 27th with a 143.609. Looks like the majority of the field here pulled off to the side. They're not going to be able to get any more laps in, as indeed the clock will tick over to 10 minutes and the checkered flag will fly for qualifying, and that means it's time to ready to go racing here from Fuji for the second time tonight. Let's go ahead and bring you that starting order. It'll be Justin Ream in pole position with his teammate John Bodefer to his outside. Manuel Troncoso will be in P3, followed by Michael Diaz with Vincent Trepanier and Miguel Vigo in P6. P7 will be Simon Theriault, and then P8, Fernando Yaquez. Abner Acosta lines up 9th, followed by Alec Bergstrom with Jose Lockwood and Adam Brockway in P12. Nicholas Risaputo starts off in 13th with Keith Bonilla to his outside. Frankie Arvelo will be 15th and Arnaud Genet 16th. Alex May lines up 17th and Francis Castillo Romero will be 18th. 19th is Alessandro Torchio, and Aiden Young lines up in 20th. Patrick Bachelard and Marc-André Desjardins will be in the row behind them. Then it's David Van Roy and Tommy Brisson. Philip Magnon will be in 25th, followed by Joy Pegrio with Keaton Marcheski and Corey Clark in the row behind them. Mike Stevenson lines up 29th with Brian Hoskins in 30th. Then it's Tony Costello and Carlos Villa in 31st and 32nd. Well, here they go as they get their way around tonight. It's going to be racing action, and I think it's going to be pretty hard to try to break this stranglehold up the top of the field held by this geodesic team. We'll have to see if these drivers are up for it.
Yeah, we've got 3 of those geodesic cars inside the top 6 on the grid. A similar situation to what we saw at Mount Panorama a week ago. And yeah, funnily enough, no one could break through their stranglehold. So let's see whether that changes here. That run into the first corner will be critical. We saw in the GR86 race, it's a long, long run down to turn 1. The slipstream starts to take effect. And if someone's feeling really brave, they might try and stick it to the inside into the first corner. I think that might be what they have to do, though. Break apart these two McLarens at the first possible opportunity. That might be the only way to stop them controlling the race from the front. Might give everyone else a shot at beating them.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. That's really got to be one of their only hopes as Justin Ream gets going here as they come through Dunlop right now, bringing these cars around down into we would call it turn 13. It's technically turn 11 on this layout, but rest assured that's going to trip us up over the course of the night as they go, trying to see what they are able to get done. But not a lot of weaving back and forth here, not a lot of what we saw last time with the cars sort of accelerating and deaccelerating as much as possible. It looks like here this is a little bit more straightforward. I think everybody just starting to get focused on in and preparing themselves for this long run down into the first corner. Ream, though, is slowly but surely making his way behind that Porsche pace car. Again, we're going to see a little bit of a mad scramble from these drivers behind, trying to make their way up to the back of the field. Ream backing the field up here a little bit. You see just how close he and Bodefer are running. That's clearly some team communication going on among the two of them, as the rest of the field is formed up behind them, and they get ready to go. Pace car pulls off. All eyes go to the flag stand here as we wait for Justin Ream to get on the loud pedal, and they're still waiting for it. Goes the green, and we are racing here in Fuji. Very good getaway from Justin Ream. John Bodefer, the same can't really be said for him, as he's got to go defensive there on Manuel Troncoso, trying to fight him off. That's also going to open up a door here for Diaz to go to the outside. We're two, almost three wide, going down into the corner. Ream gets through nice and easy. Diaz tries to sweep around the outside to get by John Bodefer, but Bodefer's going to hold it out, and now we've got a two-way fight between Troncoso and Vigo. Also behind them, it looks like Trepanier and Therier trying to fight it out as well.
Yeah, great start there by Diaz, but he just didn't have the grip on cold tyres to go around the outside of John Bodefer. Gave it a really good effort, though, and does at least slot in ahead of Troncoso as they drop through turns 3 and 4. Again, a nice clean start so far, even though they're on cold tyres and brakes. No one getting too silly. There's a good move, though, from Troncoso up the inside into the hairpin. That is a place where you've got to be really feeling confident in the brakes to make the lunge. He made the lunge, but now he's on the outside as they run towards what would be the chicane, and he has to settle back in behind the Aston Martin.
It looks like he wasn't done there for a second, tried to have a move down to the inside of Dunlop. That opened up a little bit of a door for Miguel Vigo behind him to try to get a little bit of a move. Vigo taking another poke down to the inside of turn 13. As behind him, he's got to watch out. Is that Simon Theriot trying to see what he is able to do. Not able to get anything there. They're going to run single file now through nets and set up the first of many, many draft runs on this straightaway. But I think the big news here is that Bodefer and Ream already 1.3 seconds up the road.
They're in a class of their own so far, aren't they? No one can keep up with them in qualifying. No one can keep up on cold tyres in the race either. And I just don't see anyone being able to take the fight to them. Well, let's wait and see. Long way to go. Speaking of long, look at the size of that train of GT4 cars from third place Michael Diaz right the way back, about 2/3 of the way through the field. They are locked together in a slipstream train, but no one at the front of the field yet. Diving out of the line, there is contact though. Big contact indeed. That is the 89 car going around of Simon Theriot. He was tripped up by someone. It might have been Trepanier going into the braking zone, and that AMG will be badly damaged.
And remember, that's a front engine car, so it took the brunt of the damage there on the front of and by the engine. So that's really going to be a limping car. We focus back here on the battle with the 427 BMW. That's Aiden Young and Alessandro Torchio trying to fight their way around right now. Torchio in that white and gold number 73 Mercedes. Good look to the inside there, coming through 100R. He's going to be on the outside, though, as they look into the hairpin. Looks for the crossover maneuver, but deftly held off by Aiden Young, parking it at the apex. And look at this gaggle of cars in the middle of the field.
Racing, isn't it? Look at that. 3 teammates, I think that is, isn't it? All queuing up on the outside line as they drop down into the right-hander. You can't really go side by side through there, but they did a good job of attempting it at least and kept it clean so far. Into the right-hander they go. These final 3 corners of the lap where you can go side by side, but really it's better just to get it settled down single file, which they do, and the 69 of Nicholas RaceSpotTV there in 7th place, chasing the white, black, red and blue Aston Martin ahead of him with Jose Lockwood. This the fight for 6th position, which of course has really lost touch with the group ahead as a result of that incident at the start of the lap.
Yeah, it's about 3.7 seconds between Jose Lockwood and Miguel Vigo, and so they're going to have to try to work their way out a little bit more, but it looks like here the RaceSpotTV's got a very, very good run. Indeed, I think he's got a little bit of a bump draft going on to the back of the 190 as the number 69 tries to push his way ahead. Are we going to see a poke to the inside here for RaceSpotTV? He starts to fade a little bit like he's thinking about it, but he's going to stay in line here at this point. A little bit of movement farther back down in the field. I think that was Aiden Young able to send a move. Arnaud Genet getting demoted just a little bit, and now there we see there's a very tight run there. That's the 312 of Arnaud Genet cutting off the door of David Van Rooij.
Yeah, Van Rooij almost capitalised on that to depose Genet down another place, but Arnaud just got across his nose and reduced the damage to just 1 spot lost, and now he closes back in on the AMG of Turcio, who just found a way past him. Down through the hairpin they go, this frenetic midfield battle. This is as close as we were hoping it would be based on the qualifying times, but 2 or 3 laps into the race you would expect to see a bit of separation. Really, with the exception of the top 5, that is not the case.
No, it certainly is not, as they keep this fight up, is indeed the largest gap from about 6th all the way down into 27th is about 0.8 of a second between Keith Bonilla and Frankie Arvello. Other than that, they're all running nose to tail here at this point. But we continue to watch. It looks like Abner Acosta has been able to make up a position on Alec Bergstrom in the middle of the field as we continue to watch this fight right here. As those YS Motorsport teammates, I gotta say, I love their new livery this year. The black with the purple highlights and the yellow, just absolutely phenomenal. But Genet trying to be able to get a move here on Torchio and Aiden Young. That's the fight that we continue to watch.
Yeah, back along the main straight they go then. 3-1-2 Aston Martin of Arnaud Genet trying to make a move, but here you can see the difficulty. They are all sort of locked in this slipstream train, and apart from the car at the very front of the pack, they're all kind of going about the same speed. There'll be a bit of fuel saving going on there as well, I would have thought. Battle on for 3rd, meanwhile, as Michael Diaz finds himself on the outside looking in. Through has gone Troncoso, and Miguel Vigo trying to follow him through as well. It's the outside line for turn 3, but the 2 AMGs both managed to get past the number 1 Aston Martin with that move, I think, started at turn 1.
Looks like a little bit of a fight back here from Diaz as he tries to go the long way around 100R, but there's just not grip on the outside, and he's going to have to fall back into line. Troncoso, though, I have to say here, has done a good job. He's been able to get that gap back down. We thought Raymond Bodeford were going to run away with this. He's been able to cut that gap down to about 1.1, 1.2 seconds and not let them slip away. Indeed, through the middle of the corner, we saw him actually having it under 1 second. Oh, little bit of a look there from Diaz on Vigo. I don't think that Aston Martin's going anywhere.
Not at all. You can see on the exit of that corner as well, you've got the curb and then it's grass immediately on the outside of that. You can see a few cars have run wide there. Very easy to lose the rear of the car if you do that, so very tight margins through that corner. Speaking of tight margins, look how closely together Miguel Vigo and Michael Diaz are running through this final sector. They definitely don't have the pace at the moment of Manuel Troncoso, though, and you're right, I hadn't spotted the way that he was closing on the leaders, but he is putting in some very impressive lap times. Was, what, 6/10 quicker than the leaders on the previous lap, and I think he might be a fraction faster this time as well.
Yeah, I think he might be as they continue to try to find their way around right now. We ride on board with Michael Diaz closing in behind Vigo. Is he going to go for the bump draft or is he going to go for the pass? It is the latter. He is going to go for the pass to try to close in on the new fastest lap of the race set by Manuel Troncoso. Very tight pinch, almost a little bit of argy-bargy coming down through turn 1, but they're going to hold it together. It looks like Vigo's got a nose ahead here at the moment, but is he going to be able to hold on to that as Diaz tries to sweep around the outside there of Coca-Cola? They're still going to be going at it hammer and tongs.
Great respectful racing between the two, both leaving each other space. Another chance up the inside now for Miguel Vigo. He's got the front end of that AMG working well, a bit too well maybe, had a big snap of oversteer through the apex, and so finally Michael Diaz hangs on, but they both left each other just enough space through that entire exchange, almost half a lap running side by side, and not a hint of contact between the two of them. That is the great thing about Fuji. It is such a wide track, and because there's a lot of left-right sequences of corners, corners, you don't mind giving your opponent the inside line through one turn, because the chances are you'll have the inside for the next one, and that does promote this brilliant, respectful wheel-to-wheel racing.
Yeah, it certainly does, doesn't it? It really, really allows for some great stuff to take place here as we continue to watch Diaz Vigo just stalking behind him here at this point. I'm going to be curious to see if that Aston Martin is going to be able to hold on to the front here now that he is in the lead, or if the Mercedes is going to be able to fight back at all. I can tell you that Troncoso has officially been able to catch up to Ream and Bodefer up in front of them. That gap coming down to about 0.6 of a second as they fly down the main straightaway. There you can see it. Bodefer about 0.4 of a second back. Ream holding on to the lead as Troncoso sets another fastest lap of the race. The newcomer here in the Mercedes looking particularly strong.
From racing, though, is you don't get anything for free, and that includes lap time. So the fact that Manuel Troncoso is lapping significantly quicker than the leaders, we're not talking a tenth or two here, we're talking on average half a second a lap quicker than the two cars, which looked so dominant in the early stages. So is he perhaps burning a bit more fuel? Are the geodesic McLarens working together to fuel save at this stage of the race, knowing that they built that little gap over the first couple of laps? I don't know. We'll start to get some answers when they come into the pit lane, but whilst Troncoso's pace is no doubt impressive, you have to wonder whether maybe this might come back to bite him at the stops.
Yeah, you're very right about that. I hadn't considered that as a potential thing there for them, but that could be a problem here for Troncoso. But now I wonder if he's been able to catch up behind, if maybe he can go into a little bit of fuel-saving mode, considering he's got a 3.5-second gap working in his favor here at this point. We will have to see now that he is behind if he's going to be content to do a little bit of fuel saving, or indeed if Ream and Bodefer maybe are going to have to get a little bit of a hustle on now that they've got a little bit of competition from behind them. There's multiple variables that can come into play here as we officially tick into the quarter mark of this race with 10 minutes done.
Yeah, don't forget as well that Justin Ream, despite the fact he's had 2 race wins, at the moment sits some way down in the points, but once the drop scores are taken into account, he is right back in contention. So Ream will be wanting to beat Bodefer here if he can. I expect to see these two McLarens start to fight a little bit later on in the race. Manuel Troncoso, meanwhile, some way back in the points, so he isn't really thinking about any of that. He's just gunning for a race win. Again, perhaps explaining why he is willing to push a little bit harder now and perhaps throw fuel saving out of the window. Every position is changing from about 6th place on back. Wheel to wheel they run through the first corner. This is great stuff.
Yes, it is. That was Nicholas Riceputo able to send a move on Jose Lockwood. Fernando Yaquez trying to be able to find a little bit there, and that is Adam Brockway looking in the background. Riceputo and Lockwood have been swapping positions back and forth over the course of this race, as there we see Brockway running a little bit wide. They have to be a little bit careful. That's Abner Acosta leading the second train coming in behind them, and if this fight continues on, I think Abner will be right up behind them and right involved in this fight.
Yeah, Abner Acosta qualified reasonably well, didn't he? Although it looked like he was going to. Where did he end up? He ended up 9th on the grid, so actually he's lost a position from where he started, but as you said, maybe now sensing a chance to get some of those positions back. 190 car of Lockwood a bit too hard over that curb. That opens the door for Jaquez up the inside, and I think that he will make that move stick, but again, leaves his opponent so much space, and that's really respectful racing. It's such a shame that it's now going to cost him a place, I think, to Adam Brockway, who slings his BMW M4 up the inside through the penultimate corner, but then the track goes to the right. That once again favours Jaquez in the Mercedes, and he might just hang on.
He might just be able to hang on, but is Brockway going to be able to carry a little bit more speed? And what can Abner Acosta do? He wasn't involved in that battle, and you see the jockeying there going on behind. I absolutely love seeing that, as indeed there comes Brockway poking his nose to the inside. Acosta snaking behind the two of them, trying to decide which lane he wants to pick, as Jaquez and Brockway go side by side down the main straightaway. It's going to be a battle of the late breakers, and behind them it looks like Acosta is going to be under attack there from Keith Bonilla. Almost Noah's Ark. It is Noah's Ark going down into the corner. They're somehow able to keep it all pointed the right way. Acosta's going to hold on to P10. Brockway holds on to P8, and Jaquez is the sandwich in the middle.
This is genuinely some of the best GT racing I've seen on iRacing for a long time. These drivers could show some of the pros a thing or two about wheel-to-wheel racing, that is for sure. This has been brilliant, brilliant action. So far, touch wood, squeaky clean as well. Abner Acosta there in the number 5 Aston Martin, teammate to Michael Diaz, who we see running up in 4th position right now, trying his best to buy into this fight. His first target is Fernando Jaquez, with Adam Brockway in the BMW just ahead. So 8th, 9th and 10th here circulating absolutely together as we head back towards the end of another lap.
Yeah, and I love what I'm seeing here out of Jaquez. He just continues to try to poke his nose to the inside on these medium braking zones. It's not looking like he's necessarily really trying to push for an overtake. He's not really trying to go for broke for an overtake. He's just trying to see if he can force an error. And Andy, you and I often talk about how that is such a great strategy because you fill that rear view mirror, you fill that rear view camera of the driver in front of you, and they're more likely to make a little bit of a mistake.
Yeah, it's that little flash of colour in the mirror that can just catch your attention going into a braking zone and perhaps make you second guess whether to turn in, miss your braking point by a fraction maybe, and that can sometimes open the door for an overtake. You don't always have to force the issue. Sometimes it's better to try and force a mistake out of the driver ahead. This battle is going to continue to rage down into the braking zone. We've also had a couple of changes for second place. We'll get to that in a moment though, because we've got Brockway and Lockwood running absolutely wheel to wheel, and Adam Brockway is going to make another good move under braking. That BMW coming on strong in the middle part of the race.
Yeah, it certainly is, and putting on a very good display as there we see behind him a little bit of a run for the number 26 of Jaquez. Thought about making the move but didn't go for it. But yeah, I'm very surprised by Brockway. He's carrying the flag here for BMW, the highest placed BMW by a considerable margin. The closest one back is Alex Bergstrom in 12th place. Make that 13th place as Alessandro Torchio was just able to send a move up to his inside.
Indeed so. Single file they are for the time being, which gives me a chance to mention we have had a change for second place. Manuel Troncoso getting the better of John Bodefer, so he has decided not to sit behind the McLarens and save fuel. He continues to go on the attack, so interesting stuff towards the front of the field, but this enormous battle pack of cars just won't leave each other alone. We've got Risapudo 6th, Brockway 7th, Lockwood 8th, Jaquez 9th, Acosta 10th, Vanilla in 13th place. This group really stretching all the way back basically to Arnaud Genet in 15th place before you've got a 1 second margin back to Frankie Arvello in 16th. I think we may well see some interesting pit strategies from these drivers, because as entertaining as this battling is, DJ, you've got to feel some of them are holding each other up, and we might see a few go for that undercut.
Yeah, I think we may see that as well, and we are now 15 minutes down into this race. I would say we're probably another 5 minutes away from the pit stop cycle really and truly starting to kick off, as we normally don't see a lot of these drivers pitting before the halfway mark. Very, very close behind, and indeed that's going to be a bump draft from Jaquez given to Jose Lockwood, as now it looks like Abner Acosta is going to try to take one, maybe take two, trying to see what they are able to get, as there Acosta is going to get him as he is able to move his way up into the top 10 and up into 9th position. A great move by the Aston Martin driver.
Yeah, but now Jaquez on the defensive again as they turn into the left-hander at turn 3. Keith Manila trying to get around the outside, but really heads-up driving there from Jose Lockwood, I noticed as well in the 190. He saw Acosta coming on the inside, and it looked for a second like Abner might outbrake himself, and so Lockwood just opened the steering up as he turned into turn 1, made sure that he left space, and they both came out of the corner cleanly. Up the inside now goes Manila. Again, inside line at the hairpin at turn 6. They will turn into the outside by the time they get towards the Dunlop sequence, and in fact he falls back behind Jaquez long before they get there.
Yeah, long before they get there, and now it's all just going to kind of pan itself out again, and we wait for the draft to come back into play here at this moment as they work their way down into turn 13 and through 14 right now. The gap up at the front of the field, I am keeping my eye on here at this moment, but it's not really swapping around here at this point. I think those drivers may have finally kicked into a little bit of fuel-saving mode. This absolutely electric battle is really what is starting to fascinate me. That was a little bit of a squirm there out of Jose Lockwood in the Aston Martin, and I have to say, I just took a look at that car. There's a little bit of deformity on the front nose as we look like we might have our first taker down pit lane, as indeed that's going to be Jaquez.
Yeah, this is sensible, I think. He's right in the middle of that battle. There's no way he's going to get to the front of it in the next couple of laps, so why not pit and try and get a bit of undercut in clean air? Brockway with another good move up the inside on the brakes. That BMW M4 performing really well at the end of the straight, and under braking. Doesn't get off the corner particularly well, but I don't think that's going to matter. Nicholas Risapudo will sit behind him, and the black and yellow BMW will now move into P6. One of the drives of the race for me, this from Adam Brockway. He has driven his way right the way through that entire pack of cars, having started some way down the order, did Brockway, and he continues to show good pace. Whether he can make any more progress awaits to be seen, but regardless, what he's made so far has been impressive.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive. And like we said, being able to carry the standard for that BMW, not a car that we necessarily thought would be the fastest around here, as here's Frankie Arvello locked into a very close battle in 16th. That's Alex May right behind him that tried to send a little bit of a move as they now come through 300R and line themselves up, heading into the braking zone right now for the Dunlop curve, as it looks like he's going to have to stay in line. They've also got to watch out a little bit behind them, because that's David Van Roy in the other Mercedes AMG that's not too far behind them. And really, like we've seen on every other part of this track, is, oh, that's a very, very long stop for Fernando Yaquez, 59 seconds. Something went wrong there for the number 26.
That's interesting, unless maybe he picked up a penalty of some sort. It's the only other thing I can think of, because it was a definitely out of sync pit stop. Nobody else even thinking about pitting just yet, so there clearly was something untoward going on. Now, Adam Brockway finding that you're a bit of a sitting duck perhaps when you're at the front of the pack, although maybe not. That BMW is so good at the end of the straights, he actually doesn't have to defend. The man going defensive is Nicholas Risapudo. Jose Lockwood trying to go around the outside. He gets shown the edge of the road, and he will try to find a gap back in line. That's going to be easier said than done, though, because there's a whole freight train of GT4 cars waiting for him. He does get back in line before turn 3, though, and the places stay the same.
Yeah, they're going to stay the same here as they come now through 100R, trying to wait to see if anything can play itself out again. Brockway continues to lead this scrap by about 0.3 of a second. Big moves coming down to the inside there from behind. I believe that was Keith Bonilla in the Mercedes AMG trying to take a look down to the inside of Abner Acosta, but that didn't play itself out. Behind them, that other BMW is Alec Bergstrom trying to take a look onto the back of Alessandro Torchio, as it seems like any misstep you make here, Andy, is just going to be punished. These drivers are absolutely going for any millimeter of a mistake.
Yes, and that was a late defensive move, wasn't it, going into the right-hander? Who was that? That was Bonilla, wasn't it, in the 8, defending from Alessandro Torchio. When everyone is as evenly matched as this, and they clearly are, because we're now 20 minutes into this race, and there's just zero separation at all in this enormous group of cars, you have to go for any and every opportunity that's presented to you. You also have to make absolutely sure that you don't leave the door open, because you're likely to lose more than one place if you do. Once one car wriggles up the inside, they open the door for everybody else. Was that someone else diving in? Yes, it was. That was Lockwood coming in from 8th position then. But again, only one taker from this group on this lap.
Yeah, only one taker to come on in. We're going to have to see if that played out. Remember, last time around, we did see Marlon McMullen come in a little bit early, and it worked out a treat for him. So maybe some of these drivers watching the previous race and opting to be able to do that very, very similarly and making that change. As now we see here Risapudo having a little bit of a half-hearted look down into Coca-Cola. Abner Acosta doing a good job to defend from Keith Bonilla as they now work their way through 100R. Multiple lines, as usual, being taken down through the corner, trying to see what they are able to get done as they look this way into the hairpin. Oh, I think that was a little bit of a self-preservation move there from Keith Bonilla as he almost ran into the back of Acosta.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're running this close together, it's very easy to just... if you miss your braking point by even a fraction, you will run into the back of the car ahead. I think that's really what we saw from Trepanier and Theriault in the early stages of the race. It wasn't intentional, that contact. It's just one car braking a little bit earlier than the chasing car was expecting, and that can cause some contact. Back to the lead group, and as you can see, the 462 Mercedes AMG of Manuel Troncoso continues to separate the two geodesic McLarens, and I don't anticipate we'll see any of these three pitting anytime soon. They're quite happy out in front, away from all of the madness we're seeing behind. They'll be staying out as long as they can.
And don't worry, that Mercedes that you see directly behind them is actually Fernando Yaquez, as a courtesy of that very slow pit stop. He now finds himself a lap down. The first car that actually in shot there you could see is just in the very, very background, Michael Diaz in the Aston Martin, and it's a pretty substantial gap of about 5.5, 6 seconds in between them. So these three really don't have too much to worry about up at the front. They are just able to run their own race and battle amongst themselves, but I'm getting the sense now that Troncoso has been able to split these two geodesic Alpine Stars geodesic machines, he's got no intent of trying to move around. I think he's okay here, and he's ready to fuel save.
Yeah, he's done what he had to do to get into contention here, hasn't he? I think he knew that he had to break away from Diaz and Vigo, and it's a good job he did, because look at the amount of time that those two have dropped. Now, it's possible that they are going into really serious fuel save mode, but I do think that these three just have a pace advantage. On board with John Boda for them as he turns into Dunlop once again. John running third place in the race, but remember, he's your points leader by 15 over Diaz coming into this race, and you can see the concentration on his face. These cars are not easy to drive around this place, especially given how close the competition is, and I'm sure that he is now starting to think about when the best time to make this stop might be.
Yeah, I certainly think he's starting to think about that a little bit, and he'll be on the radio, no doubt, with his engineers, probably with Justin Ream, to try to sort that out and make sure they know exactly when they want to come in as a group, as I'd have to imagine these two geodesic racing teammates are going to come in together. Oh, a little bit farther back down in the field, Adam Brockway's had a bad run coming out of the final corner, and that's going to set up a little bit of a drag race here coming down the main straightaway. Now, I believe that's Abner Acosta going to be thinking about coming down into pit lane. Yes, it is, but look at this, slicing and dicing, and slicing. Everybody gonna go, and we may be 3-4 wide by the time we get to turn 1.
This has got drama written all over it, hasn't it? They've been well behaved up until this point. Can they keep that going? 5 cars all aiming for the apex at the same time, and on the inside line, Abner Acosta, I think, is going to come out of that on top, and got to really feel for Adam Brockway. That's really the first mistake that he's made all race long, and it cost him 3 positions as he drops in behind not only Acosta but Bonilla and RaceSpotTV as well. And now Torchio goes up the inside into turn 3 as well, and I think Adam Brockway may have to give way. No, keeps the inside line for 100R, and he's going to try and fight that out. But Adam Brockway, the first little error that he made, and it was really costly. As we said, you lose 1 place here, you're likely to lose more than 1.
Yeah, I mean, he lost 3 places, and he's having to defend for his life here to prevent himself from losing 4. Very, very tough stuff for the YS SimSport driver, but it looks like he's finally able to hold that ahead of Torchio. His biggest problem, though, is he now finds himself 1.3 seconds behind RaceSpotTV, and he's going to have to hustle that BMW to be able to try to gain back in on the front of the field. I don't think Torchio liked that cutoff of his nose there as he flashed the headlights coming out of the Dunlop corner, and a little bit of aggrievement there, I think, out of the number 73.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't really see Brockway do anything wrong particularly. I think he was just fighting to try and get back in line, and he's entitled to defend the position, but Torchio perhaps just frustrated that in defending that place, Brockway has made them lose some time. Now, interestingly here, DJ, the leading 3 have, in fact, all of the leaders choosing to pit on this lap, so this was clearly the moment that most of our drivers had pinpointed as the time to pit, and the pit road is suddenly a very busy place.
Yeah, very, very busy. It's easier here at this point to talk about the drivers who didn't come down into pit lane, that being Abner Acosta, Nicholas RaceSpotTV, and Alessandro Torchio. Looks like Brisson and Marc-Andre Desjardins are also going to stay out. This is what I want to see, though. I want to see Ream, Bodefer, and Troncoso, how they are going to come out together here, where they are going to come out at this point, as it looks like, whoa, that was a super quick stop for Troncoso.
I'm a little bit shocked at that. That was over 2 seconds quicker than Justin Ream, and Bodefer is going to jump Ream as well. So really slow stop for the driver who had led every lap up to this point. And, well, the driver that we thought might have had to take on a bit more fuel ends up with by far the quicker stop. So either he knows something we don't, or he's perhaps made a small miscalculation. But if that's the case, he's got what he's got now. And Manuel Troncoso, it would seem, is going to cycle through this pit stop cycle with a reasonably comfortable race lead.
Yeah, he's going to be in pretty good position here, I would have to think, if he is able to get that calculation right on fuel. We take a look at the battle of what is the lead of the race here at this point. This is Acosta and RaceSpotTV, 1 and 2. Now, they still owe us a pit stop, as does Torchio, Brisson, Desjardins, and Bachelard. Those are the 6 drivers who have still yet to pit here with under 13 minutes to go. We expect them to come on in. Yeah, that was a very quick stop for Troncoso, but I have to say it's not the quickest one we've seen, as it looks like Keith Bonilla actually able to make the fastest stop with a 12.9. Everybody else averaging about a 13-14 second pit stop.
Okay, that's interesting. So maybe that wasn't outrageously short a pit stop. The remaining cars now starting to peel in. Abner Acosta, Nicholas RaceSpotTV, and Alessandro Torchio from the top 3 positions. And this will be interesting as well, because whilst they're not fighting for the race lead, they were in that massive battle pack fighting for 6th on back, and they have chosen to pit a lap later. Whether or not that benefits them, we shall have to wait and see. But Manuel Troncoso is going to blast past them all down the pit straight. He takes the race lead, and it's going to be a lead of, what, 1.7 seconds or so back to the geodesic teammates.
Yeah, he is. 1.7 seconds. That's crucially out of the draft range. That's going to be very, very crucial for him as they go. But we will have to see what ends up happening. Continues to grow it out as here come the rest of the drivers coming out of pit lane. Acosta making that work a treat. He was out in 12.7 seconds. He's going to find himself up ahead of that whole group, up in 6th place.
Yeah, so lots of shuffling of the order then through that cycle of pit stops. We're seeing some real variation in pit stop times, and also I suspect in and out laps are having an effect as well. We mentioned at the top of the broadcast that you might want to pit with friends, but sometimes pitting with too many friends can actually hold you up on the pit entry and exit. If you're coming in with lots of other people and they start braking at different points going into the pit lane, actually you can drop a second or so very easily, so perhaps those who stayed out a bit later found a small advantage that way.
Yeah, exactly. As that could be the way to win this race, potentially, being able to make those jumps. As now we watch the number 1, Michael Diaz, working behind Miguel Vigo. These are 2 that pitted on the same lap. They came out in the same order here pretty much. They've just been trading back and forth. I think they did a decent amount of fuel saving in between the 2 of them, and they're running very, very well at this point. As they come out of the final corner here right now, back onto the straightaway. Vigo try to take it a little bit more, and it looks like that may just be enough to be able to hold him at bay for now. Troncoso in front of the field, continuing to hold that gap, about 1.6 seconds. He's looking better and better each lap with only 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, Miguel Vigo could really do with the points here. He sits 3rd in the standings, but he's had a bit of an up and down season. 2 podiums, but then he's also had a 6th and a 10th place finish in the other 2 races. So, he's going to lose a place here, though, I think, because that was a very committed lunge up the inside from Michael Diaz. Again, gets the car stopped, though, doesn't run wide into the AMG, and he will settle back in line again coming off the corner. So good, respectful racing once more. It looks like they've got the track to themselves, doesn't it? These are probably the 2 loneliest drivers out there. They've still got each other to fight with, but at least it is just a 2-way fight, unlike that battle for 6th, which continues to rage on.
Yeah, continues to rage on, continues to be very, very fierce up at that field. My goodness gracious, this just will not go away. This is Torchio, Brockway, Lockwood, and RaceSpotTV, and Arnaud Genet also now starting to get involved in this battle as well. As there you see everybody trying to take different lines there down into the hairpin, trying to see if they're able to sort of scare their opponents off of the line. I'm getting the sense here, Andy, that drivers are starting to have to get a little bit more creative. They know the main attack is going to be coming down the start-finish straightaway, so they're trying to do what they can do and push a move a little bit farther back on the lap.
And again, to a point I made earlier on, I'll get to that in a second, because there was a big mistake there for Lockwood. That will open the door for Nicholas RaceSpotTV, who made absolutely sure that he made that move stick. Good opportunistic driving from the red AMG, who now slings it up the inside of Brockway as well, going into the penultimate corner. That one's not going to be quite so effective, but to a point I made earlier on about this being a momentum circuit, I think a lot of these sort of surprise attacks that we're seeing are coming more from little mistakes being made by drivers perhaps perhaps defending into a part of the track where it's really important to carry that mid-corner speed, and that just sort of stacks everything up. It creates this side-by-side racing at points at which you wouldn't necessarily expect to see it. It's very entertaining to watch, that's for sure, and as close as they're battling, well, you kind of expect it to go wrong at any moment, but so far that's not happened.
No, so far it has not happened here at this point, and so we just continue to watch it around, and I think for a lot of these drivers, they're trying to force those errors, but with them not coming, it really just goes to show as a testament of the ability of these drivers out on track. It's nothing short of spectacular that they are able to keep this up for a full 40 minutes with this kind of pressure coming up behind them. It's spectacular, Andy.
Not afford to have a slip up, and yet you're racing here under conditions that are made to cause mistakes, really. The drivers around you trying to distract you, trying to attack you into every braking zone, and the mental strength that is required to not slip up, not open that door, is remarkable. And yeah, not one of these drivers really have had a moment to breathe all race long. There is constantly something to think about, whether that be the wheel-to-wheel battle you're involved in, thinking about fuel strategy, thinking about pitting, thinking about managing the tyres, thinking perhaps about timing your move as well, because we are getting down to the end of the race, and given the back and forth battling we've seen, perhaps the timing of that final overtake could be key.
Yeah, it very well could. And again, it's going to come down to a little bit of, I think, a Daytona situation where you've got to time yourself out. I think coming across the line now, knowing what we know and agreeing with your point from earlier, that when you come out of the last corner with coming to the white flag, I think that's where you want to be in second place. That's where you want to be making that move. We've got a little bit of side-by-side here between Miguel Vigo and Michael Diaz. That's going to be Diaz down to the inside on Vigo. Vigo didn't make it easy there for him, but he was able to get it done and move the Precision Racing Esports driver up into 4th place.
Indeed he does, so Aston Martin ahead of Mercedes AMG. Meanwhile, that lead gap is starting to come down. On the previous lap, Bodefer and Ream both did 140. Well, actually, they were slightly different to each other, but they were both quicker, is the point, than Troncoso. Ream, in particular, was about 8/10ths quicker than the race leader, so that gap is coming down. The two geodesic McLarens working well in tandem, and I think they might just have time to close on Troncoso. It's intriguing to me, DJ, that Troncoso suddenly has slowed down. Fuel saving, maybe? Or is it just that the McLarens had that little bit extra in hand?
Well, I'm looking at the previous lap times here, and they were able to take just a little bit out on 3 laps ago, and then a big chunk here on the last lap. But it did look like Troncoso was able to gain back a little bit more time in Sector 1. He lost it again through Sector 2. Car looked like it slid a little bit, the 462 coming onto the main straightaway. The gap's now going to hold at about 1.5 seconds. So as we continue to watch this battle, though, between Diaz and Vigo, we'll let you know what the time is as they come across the line here, because this is going to be the real telling mark. With just over 5 minutes to go, the gap came down by about 1/10 of a second between Troncoso and Bodefer, and that's what Bodefer needs to do. He needs to take out a couple of tenths here over the next few laps, because then that'll get him behind in that crucial draft range. That, however, is a very dangerous bump draft from Miguel Vigo, as it looked like he was pushing him on the side of the car, and that's not the way you want to get a bump draft done.
Yeah, so easy to hook that car around the front of your car when you do that, and you're trying to help them, really, but it can still go wrong. Interesting that Vigo did that, though, and didn't try to get up the inside and overtake. Perhaps he's thinking about what we were just thinking about, and timing the move for the start of the final lap. No point making the move now, because you're just a sitting duck down the straight on the very next lap. They're not going to catch the leaders. They're not going to be caught by the others behind. These two drivers very much aware of the fact that they are fighting for 4th position and 4th position only. Based on what you were just saying about lap times at the front, by the way, DJ, I suspect maybe it was just a mistake for Troncoso then on that previous lap where he lost time, because you're right, they're pretty much matching each other now, and Manuel is only a couple of laps away from doing this.
Yeah, and if he's able to steal this victory away, this is going to be pretty impressive. Not only because he's able to get the wool over these two geodesic drivers, but because he's able to get the wool over this pair of McLarens. Remember, last week we were singing the praises of the British manufacturer, that they were going to be absolutely unbeatable here down this long front straightaway at Fuji, and now that quite doesn't seem to be the case. But now as they cross over the line, this will be, I believe, just 2 laps to go, just barely 2 laps to go at the line. Here comes a little bit of a move for Justin Ream. He's trying to get the draft here, and I think that's a little bit of game of leapfrog between teammates.
Yeah, well, this is interesting, though, isn't it? Because as I made the point earlier on, Troncoso is not a championship contender, even after the drop scores are added on or taken away, whichever way you want to look at it. He is a long way back. So, in a way, Justin and John, they don't really need to worry about Troncoso. They'd both like to win the race, of course they would, but really it's about beating each other, because these two Alpine Stars Geodesic McLaren drivers are going to be very close on points once those drop scores are taken into account. So, perhaps they've just decided with 2 laps to go, time to fight it out for second, or, as you suggested, was that just a coordinated move to see if Justin Ream can go after the race leader, because John Bodefer wasn't really making any progress.
Yeah, that could be it. And after that pass has been made, the gap has come down 0.2 of a second taken out in that first sector alone. Another 0.2 of a second were taken out there on the first lap, or on the last lap rather. Sector 2, it looks like it comes back to Troncoso. That Mercedes AMG just looks a little bit more comfortable through the second sector, through the twisty bits, and I think that's where he's able to keep everything at bay. Now, as we tick closer, 2 minutes to go. As we said, I believe they'll be coming to the line here to take the white flag. Troncoso has just got to try to keep away as much as possible and maybe hope that he's not going to have too many problems here. He's got about 1.3 seconds and change. It looks like as they come to the line, my math may have been wrong. Now I believe it's going to be 2 laps to go. Yes, indeed, 2 laps to go now, so they've got more time to do this. Do we see a bump draft or do we see more leapfrog? We're seeing more leapfrog out of the Alpine Stars Geodesic drivers.
Well, that tells me then that the previous move was not coordinated. I think they have decided that Troncoso is out of reach and it's time to fight for second place, because Justin Ream didn't bother defending from John Bodefer, but Bodefer definitely cost them a bit of time by going up the inside. Probably 2 or 3 tenths drop there, and that means that Troncoso can just start to relax a little bit more. Behind them, you can see Keith Bonilla and Abner Acosta just trade in 7th place as well. So battles up and down the leaderboard right now as we head into the closing stages.
Yeah, everybody continuing to fire off here. 1.5 seconds the gap right now between Troncoso and Bodefer. We'll keep our eyes here at this point as they continue to go, waiting to see what they're going to be able to do, and waiting to see if these 2 McLaren drivers have anything to respond with here in the final dying moments of this race. As right now, it does look like they're closing up just a little bit, but it's not nearly going to be enough, as again, Troncoso able to hold on and able to gain a little bit of time in that middle sector. That just appears to be where that Mercedes comes alive a little bit more, and that is certainly going to be to their benefit. Now as we watch, they come onto the main straightaway. They will be getting the white flag this time by. That is guaranteed. Let's see what they're able to get done. Let's see if they have anything. I think this is going to be a battle for P2. White flag is in the air from Barney the Flagman, and yes, this is going to be a battle for P2.
Yes, it is. Bodefer goes defensive this time, which is different from what we've seen from them previously. There is definitely no teamwork now. John Bodefer to the inside, Justin Ream on the outside line. These two so close together as they turn into the first corner, and John Bodefer will just hang on. I've just done some very quick maths, by the way, DJ. I reckon once those drop scores are taken into account, it is just a 4-point advantage for Bodefer over Ream. That is how close it is between the two, as there's contact there. Diaz and Vigo finally making contact, and Michael Diaz hangs on to 4th.
Barely hangs on to 4th, and Vigo getting over the radio there, I think none too pleased about what he had happen, as he's going to try to hold on here. He's going to be trying to fight a little bit more. That Geodesic Mercedes driver now trying to push his way ahead here a little bit to see if he can have anything to play, as right now he's going to look down to the inside, going through 100R. That's not going to play, but he gets the crossover down into the inside of the hairpin. It looks like there's going to be more momentum taken around for the number 1, but I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to take out of it, as here they come, and again, that's going to be Diaz up and into the lead of this battle.
Again, really good racing. I feared the worst then when Vigo dived to the inside into the hairpin. He was frustrated with what had just happened at turn 1, sent the lunge on the inside, but thankfully room was left for him, and they continue to battle on. That's going to rage right down to the flag. Could be a real drag race to the line. The lead gap is creeping down as well, DJ, but I don't think Bodefer's going to get there.
I don't think he is either. 1.4 seconds the gap here at this point. Troncoso comes across the final parts of this straightaway, and it looks like a surprise victory here for the 462. The Mercedes driver crosses the line, and he will take victory from Fuji. Bodefer and Ream have to settle for P2 and P3 respectively. It looks like a little bit of a drag race behind between Diaz and Vigo, but I think Diaz is going to be able to hold on to this, as indeed he will, denying a 2-3-4 for that Alpine Stars geodesic team. And look at this gaggle to the line.
Yeah, let's try and sort this one out then. This is going to be very close indeed. That's RaceSpotTV pulling to the outside of Alessandro Torchio, but I don't think he got there by the line. So that was Bergstrom 6th, Bonilla 7th, Torchio 8th, RaceSpotTV 9th, Abner Acosta 10th, and poor old Adam Brockway didn't even make it into the top 10 after all of his fighting earlier on. He ends up 11th, but was still a very impressive fighter in that race, as he made lots of good overtakes. Unfortunately, one mistake though sends him out of the top 10.
Well, with a race with the margins as narrow as that, I can't say I'm surprised. I want to also give credit here. We had all drivers that finished the race doing so on the lead lap. I haven't seen that in a very, very long time. So let's run you through the final finishing order here. Troncoso taking that surprise victory up at the front of the field over John Bodefer and Justin Ream. Michael Diaz came home in P4, followed by Miguel Vigo, Alex Bergstrom, and Keith Bonilla. Alessandro Torchio and Nicholas RaceSpotTV were in the middle of that big gaggle that we saw for the entire race long, with Abner Acosta coming home in 10th to round out the top 10. Then it was Adam Brockway, followed by Jose Lockwood and Arnaud Genet, Aiden Young, and Francis Castillo Romero. Then it was Frankie Arvello, followed by Tommy Brisson, David Van Roy, Marc-Andre Desjardins, and Keaton Marcheschi to round out your top 20. In 21st, it was Philippe Magnin, followed by Patrick Bachelard, then Joel Pogruyo, followed by Corey Clark and Fernando Yaquez in 25th. 26th was Alex May with Brian Hoskins behind him, and then it was Mike Stevenson, the last driver to be finished here today. Simon Terrier, Vincent Trepanier, Tony Costello, and Carlos Villa all did not see the final flag. Man, oh man, Andy, as we wait for our winning drivers to sort of work their way up to the press booth here, Fuji, 2 in a row, and it delivered, let me tell you.
I will reveal to everyone now that before we went live today, I was saying I wasn't a big fan of Fuji. I think it's just won itself a new fan in me. That was a pair of fantastic races. The GT4 race, genuinely one of the most intriguing and exciting sim races I've covered in quite some time. Just brilliant close racing. Really very, very little in the way of contact. Certainly nothing malicious, no dodgy driving at all. Just good hard racing. What an intriguing battle it was at the front as well, with Manuel Troncoso just finding pace out of absolutely nowhere. We thought that he was going to struggle on fuel. He didn't. He played it to perfection, and is a very deserving race winner.
Yes, he is, and we have been able to catch up with him. Manuel, my goodness gracious, a bit of a surprise there for you, but you were able to take that in and take victory. How are you feeling?
Hello, guys. I'm feeling good. I have a friend is helped me to translate for me. I not speak English that well. It's Michael Diaz.
Let me pull him on in. Let me pull him
thank you.
on in. Michael Diaz is here to help us translate, and Michael, through you, I've got to ask for Manuel, how are you feeling here today? That was one of the most impressive runs we've ever seen.
Oh, first of all, hi guys. Manuel, ¿qué dicen ellos? Que ¿Cómo te sientes hoy? Que eso fue una de las carreras más impresionantes que ya han visto en mucho tiempo.
Hola, chicos. Gracias. No, la verdad que bien contento, bien feliz de ganar esta carrera y bien sorprendido. La estrategia la hice súper bien, ahorrando bastante gasolina atrás de los muchachos, de los dos McLaren. Y bueno, y al final resultó súper bien.
Yeah, he says, first of all, thanks to you guys for the broadcast, and he feels really happy about his race results. He was able to play the fuel game really well behind the geodesic boys. And yeah, overall, he's happy with his race finish.
Well, in terms of that fuel game, it looked like that was a little bit out the window at the beginning, where you were just trying to chase in on those geodesic guys up at the front. Is that true? Were you just pushing there, and then as soon as you got in the middle of them, you were able to back off and save fuel?
Manuel, que si al inicio de la carrera tuviste que empujar para llegar y después que lo pudiste separar, sí, empezaste a ahorrar.
Sí, por supuesto. Tuve que ahorrar al principio, tuve que empujar al principio para alcanzarlo porque no estábamos en rebufo. La estrategia era llegarle y ahorrar un... Y nada, así todo resultó súper bien.
Yeah, he says he had to push to get back in the draft, and after that, it was pretty straightforward. He managed to get, I think it was John, and then after that point, it was just saving as much as he can.
Well, and as we look ahead to Brands Hatch here, pretty much a polar opposite of a circuit, do you think you'll be able to carry on the same good luck you had here today?
Para Bransash, ¿cómo te sientes? ¿Crees que puedes cargar con la misma suerte que tuviste hoy?
Vamos a tratar, hay que trabajar para eso y mucha práctica. Así que para adelante. Claro que sí.
Yeah, he says he's gonna try lots of practice, but she's lying. He's not gonna practice. And yeah, so just looking forward to the next race.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. Anybody you'd like to thank here today?
Thank you, guys.
Si a alguien le queda agradecimiento, yeah.
Oh, a mi papá local por el skin, por supuesto. Y que gracias por ayudarme a inscribirme a la carrera.
He says Jose Lockwood for lending him a race paint for today, and thanks for helping him sign up in the league.
Well, thank you to the both of you, and we'll see you next time out.
All right, guys, take care.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was your race winner, Miguel Troncoso. And now I believe, Andy, you have been able to catch up with P2, John Bodefer.
Yeah, that's right. John Bodefer joins me now. And John, that was an intriguing race, really. It looked as though you and your teammate Justin had that sort of in hand early on. Were you surprised at the rate at which Manuel was able to catch you there?
No, I know Manuel's pretty quick. And I was on limited practice this week, so not really able to give 100% during the race. Just trying to save fuel and not get any off tracks because it's easy to do here.
Yeah, for sure. We saw that. It was a very measured drive, really, from the pair of you. Until those last couple of laps, it seemed like you were working together to try and chase down Manuel. At what point was the decision made between yourself and Justin that actually it was time to fight for second?
It was kind of made when he sent it in turn one. So after that, it was gloves off and see who came out on top. And we both raced fair with each other, so I wasn't worried about anything like that. So.
It is tough, isn't it? Because you two you're sort of separated in the points at the moment, but after those drop scores, you're almost level on points. So every position matters when you two are battling on track. How intense do you expect that to become now over the next 5 weeks?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll turn up as we get closer to the end of the championship. I think it's like that in any team, single car championship. You want to help the team, but also you want to do the best you can. So it's a little bit of give and take at the beginning, and then towards the end, you kind of turn it up a little bit.
Well, we're heading off to one of my personal favourite tracks next week, Brands Hatch, a track that I think should suit the McLaren. Is that something you agree with?
Yeah, it should. There's not a lot of curbing, so that helps. There's a little bit of fast corners, fast sweeping corners, so that hurts a little bit. So I think it should be a pretty even track between all the cars. The BOP and the fixed series seems to be pretty good. So.
Yeah, certainly. That's something we noticed and commented on during the race as well. John, thank you for joining us. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before you go?
Yeah, I want to thank Hydro Race USA for sponsoring the team. All the guys at Geodesic for the support and putting in the laps with us to help get us up to speed. And thank you guys for the broadcast.
It's our pleasure, Don. It's our pleasure. Congratulations. Another solid points day today. We'll see you at Brands Hatch.
Thank you.
John Bodefer then second place here at Fuji after a tough fight there with his teammate and championship rival Justin Ream, who now catches up with DJ.
Yes, indeed. And Justin, I want to start at the end there. Talk me through those last couple of laps, the fight with John going down to the line.
It was just a friendly battle, and he had an idea what I was going to try to do. I was going to try to do the crossover before the apex, but he kind of blocked it off. So
kind of blocked you off and scuppered you there from being prevented to be able to do that. But Troncoso able to kind of steal one on you. What were your thoughts early on in the race? It looked like you guys were breaking away, and then he was able to come up behind you. Were you guys having any communication about him coming up and splitting you up, or what was going on?
No, I think we probably should have talked about it more, or at least had a plan, I guess. But we didn't really have a plan. And my pit stop, I accidentally like hit the pit limiter button or to take it off when leaving. So I was like freaking out because I thought I was gonna get a speeding penalty in the pits. That's why I slowed down like super as well. So I kind of screwed up my pit stop. But yeah, he had pretty good pace today, and then he managed to like outdo us on the pit stop as well.
Yeah, it certainly looked that way. But as we look ahead, obviously this championship fight going to be continuing on up until the end. And next week at Brands Hatch, we just heard John talk a little bit about how he kind of likes your chances when it comes to Brands Hatch. Not a lot of curbing there. Should be a relatively good track for the McLaren. How do you feel about it?
It should be a good track for all the cars, I think. I think all the cars, the VOP is really good this season, so should be an interesting fight between all the different manufacturers.
Well, I know I'm certainly looking forward to it, Justin, but as for today, who'd you like to thank?
I'd like to thank you guys for putting on the broadcast. You guys always do a great job, and then also Hydro Race for sponsoring us.
All right, well, Justin, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time at Brands Hatch.
Take care.
All right, that was Justin Ream, your third-place finisher. And, folks, that's about going to do it for us here on RaceSpotTV. But as we said earlier, tune in next week because we will be back from one of the most historic racing circuits on the iRacing service, that being Brands Hatch Circuit in the UK. But until then, on behalf of myself, DJ Clark, as well as Andy McEwen, and our director and producer, Hugo Louise, it's been an absolute pleasure to bring you the racing action here today. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.